Lucia couldn't believe that Linda was offering her so much money to leave Dalen's life. It was clear just how much Linda disliked her. Lucia responded, "I'm just afraid that if I take your money, you won't get what you want." "What do you mean?" Linda asked. "Because the one who doesn't want to get divorced isn't me. It's your son." Lucia's face was cold. "Impossible. He's with Victoria now," Linda argued. The word "together" was like a needle stabbing into Lucia's heart. She frowned. "If you don't believe me, you can ask Dalen." With that, Lucia stood up and left. On the way back, Lucia raised her head and looked at the darkening sky. The burning in her eyes made her squeeze them shut. Was Dalen really with Victoria? Why didn't he want a divorce? Would he want one sooner or later? Lucia stretched out her hand and looked at the diamond ring on her ring finger. The pink diamond was so beautiful, pure and noble. One of her tears fell on the jewel, but it just became even more beautiful. Lucia pushed the door open and smelled the fragrance of the food in the room. She immediately felt hungry. Cole placed his hands on his hips and glared at Lucia. "You're back?" "I'm back." "Where were you?" Cole asked. "I don't want to talk about it," Lucia said, looking at the dishes on the table. Cole was angry. "You're the one who wanted to come over, so why did you run off?" "I didn't run off." Lucia went to the kitchen to get the food. "You didn't run. Okay. Did it take you that long to tell the driver to pick you up tomorrow morning?" Cole entered the kitchen in disbelief. "Okay, fine. I purposely waited for you to be done with dinner." Lucia passed a bowl of rice to Cole. Cole was speechless as he watched Lucia eat a bowl of rice and scoop another bowl for herself. "Do you have a good appetite?" Cole asked. "Yes, I was hungry," Lucia said with a full mouth. Cole thought for a moment and said, "Okay, I'm not angry at you. Now can you tell me what happened?" Lucia sighed. "I just happened to bump into Linda when I was out." Cole gasped. "Here? Now?" "I just happened to bump into her. Or, I don't know, maybe she came looking for me." Lucia's expression had already returned to normal. "Why was she looking for you?" Cole asked, his curiosity growing. "She said that she'll pay me to divorce Dalen." Cole looked at her cautiously and asked tentatively, "Do you want to?" "Why are you even asking?" Lucia glared at him. Cole held up his hands. "I don't know, I'm just wondering what you want." "I do want a divorce, but it's useless. It's not going to happen until Dalen wants it to," Lucia said. Cole thought for a moment and asked, "How much does Linda want to give you?" "Millions. Enough to buy whole companies," Lucia said. "Wow, she really wants you gone." Lucia looked at him. "What are you looking at me like that for? We've never liked her. You don't want to defend her, do you?" Cole asked. "I respect the elderly and she's still my mother-in-law," Lucia said. "She's still horrible," Cole argued. In the evening, Lucia stayed after dinner and slipped into the bed in Cole's room. When Cole returned to his room after showering, he saw that Lucia had already fallen asleep. "Truly heartless," he chuckled. However, as Cole looked at Lucia, he just felt sorry for her. The next morning in the company office, Lucia was sitting at her desk, staring blankly at her computer. Cole was working hard next door when someone knocked on Lucia's office. Lucia was stunned. Then Mark came in. Lucia was always a bit nervous every time she saw Mark. She was afraid that Mark would say that he wants to resign, and that would mean that Dalen was withdrawing even further from her. "What is it?" Lucia asked, suppressing her nervousness. "Mrs. Patrick, is the company having a New Year's party?" Mark asked. Lucia heaved a sigh of relief. At the same time, she relaxed her body. "You can take charge of it." The New Year's party was prematurely held before the new year, so after the event was over, employees could celebrate with their own family and friends. This year's ball is different from previous years, Mark said. Why is it different? You can do whatever you want, Lucia said, shrugging him off. All right. Mark didn't say anything more and quickly left. Cole walked over and asked, Why didn't you ask what's different this year? Aren't you curious? Isn't it just a big party and dance? What could be that different? I went every year when my dad was around, but I don't want to participate at all this year, Lucia said dispiritedly. You're the boss. It wouldn't make sense if you didn't participate, Cole argued. I was just thinking. Lucia became lost in thought, and when she came back to her senses, she pulled Cole aside and asked, Tell me, do I need to pull myself together and work hard? What do you mean? I don't understand, Cole said in surprise. In case Dalen really does withdraw his support, if he took away all of his experts, what would I do? So, should I start to learn how to run the company now so that I won't be in the dark later? Lucia asked worriedly. Would he do that? Cole asked with a hint of uncertainty. Why not? He left me just like that, Lucia said, remembering the pain of the past few weeks. Cole thought for a moment and said, Why don't we just make sure Mark is loyal to you? Is that possible? Lucia doubted. Why not? I'm not as rich as Dalen, Lucia said. You may not have as much money as him, but as long as you have the heart, you're more reliable than money. For example, if someone were to give me $10 million a year to betray you, I wouldn't be willing, Cole said. Lucia thought about the idea. Was it feasible? This is much more effective than learning about the company now, Cole said. Lucia frowned and looked at him. What do you mean? Are you calling me stupid? Why would I do that? Tell me, if you start learning now, will you learn enough in time? Isn't it easier to poach Mark? You can still start learning about running the company while poaching Mark. In the end, Lucia thought that Cole's idea was not bad. Mark returned to his office after lunch. He knew that no one would disturb him at this time because this was when he took his midday nap. Just as he laid down, he heard a sound from outside. Mark, are you there? Mark was stunned. He put his glasses back on and straightened his suit. Mark, are you there? The voice came again. Mark opened the door without even putting on his tie. Lucia was slightly taken aback. Mark, you already took an afternoon nap so quickly? Mark pushed his glasses up and looked at the fruit plate that Lucia was carrying. It was filled with all kinds of fruits. Mrs. Patrick, what is this? Mark asked impatiently. Oh, about this. I was thinking that I would bring you some fruits for after your meal. Didn't you say that eating fruit after lunch is good for your health? Lucia giggled. Lucia walked past Mark into his office and placed the fruit plate on the table. She said to Mark, who was stunned, Come over quickly. Let's see if it tastes good. Mark was completely confused by Lucia's actions, but seeing that Lucia had no intention to leave anytime soon, he walked over and sat down as well. Eat, Lucia urged again. Mark looked at the fruit and asked, Do you have something you want to talk about? Lucia innocently shook her head. No, this isn't working time. We're all friends here. Can't I have a chat with you? All right. Mark was a bit confused. Friends? When did he become friends with Lucia? It felt weird. It was also impossible to tell what Lucia was planning. Mark took a bite out of the fruit. Is it delicious? Lucia asked. Mark nodded. Delicious. Lucia beamed. That's good. Lucia watched Mark as he ate the fruit. Mark had never experienced such a strange interaction in his life. After eating a few slices, Mark said, I think that's enough for me. That's true. You keep the plate and eat while you work, Lucia offered. Mark wanted to say that he didn't eat while he was working, but at the moment he could only say half-heartedly, Okay. Lucia stopped talking and stared at Mark, and Mark felt uncomfortable being stared at. Mrs. Patrick, is there anything else? He eventually asked. Ah, yes, I'll treat you to a meal after work, Lucia said. Me? When Mark came to the company, he didn't even have an introductory meal with Lucia. There must be a reason for her to suddenly treat him to a meal, right? Yes, please, Lucia confirmed. No one else? Mark asked. Who else would come? Just the two of us. Lucia thought to herself, with so many people in Dalen's pocket, she just needed to capture Mark and everything else would be fine. Mark stuttered. Is there a problem? I just don't know why you're acting so differently today. It's strange, Mark said. Why is it weird to treat you to something to eat? Think about it. When you came to my company, I didn't even treat you to an introductory meal. Is that too outrageous? Are you being stingy? It's not like that in other companies. That's why I feel that I need to build a good relationship with you, Lucia explained. Okay, but I may not have time. I'll be working late and I have a lot of work to do, Mark said lamely. Is that so? Lucia rubbed her chin. I understand. With that, she stood up and left. After returning to her office, Lucia pulled Cole along and said, Let's get off work early and buy some food. After that, we'll come back and cook some homemade dishes. What for? Cole asked, confused. Mark has to work overtime, so he definitely doesn't have time to eat. This is a great opportunity to get him to our side, Lucia said excitedly. Cole regretted giving Lucia the idea. Mark worked late like basically every bachelor did every day. Sometimes he just slept at the company. If she brought Mark food today, then wouldn't she be making food for Mark every day? But regret was useless. If he didn't do it, Lucia would never stop bothering him. The lights were on in Mark's office that night. It was already past 6, and he still had no intention of leaving anytime soon. Suddenly, his office door was pushed open. Mark looked up and saw Lucia sticking her head in. Mark! Mark gaped at her. Lucia pushed open the door and walked in, asking, You still haven't eaten, right? Not yet, Mrs. Patrick. Why haven't you left yet? Mark was afraid that Lucia would treat him to a meal, so he immediately said, I haven't finished my work yet. It will be very late. I knew you were too busy to eat, so I brought you dinner. Lucia took out a picnic basket from behind her back. Look, this is the dinner I brought for you. She placed it on the coffee table. Mark walked over and watched as Lucia took out all the dishes. The food was still steaming hot. Eat, I've already eaten. Lucia looked at Mark with a smile. Mark was indeed quite hungry. Furthermore, the dishes smelled so good, making his mouth water. However, Mark knew that he couldn't eat the food that Lucia brought because of his actual boss. Mrs. Patrick, I'm not hungry, he said with a painful stab in his empty stomach. How can you not be hungry? It's after 6 o'clock. After Lucia finished speaking, she lowered her voice and said, Are you afraid that others will find out? Don't worry. As long as you don't say anything, no one will know. Mark thought, if you brought a picnic basket in from the front door, a lot of people would know about it, even if it's after work. What do you mean? I will be very sad if you don't eat it. You know, I worked really hard to make it for you, Lucia said in an aggrieved tone as she sat on the sofa. You made it yourself? Mark asked in surprise. Lucia nodded shamelessly. Now Mark was even more afraid to eat it. He felt his head ache. Actually, it doesn't matter if you don't eat, Lucia suddenly said. Mark looked at her curiously. I will send dinner to you every day until you are willing to eat the food I make. Lucia's words sounded like a threat, but her teenage face was filled with pity and grievance, as if she was the one being bullied by Mark. Mark felt that this was even more difficult than dealing with his legal cases. It was hard to explain what it would mean if he ate the food made by Lucia. He didn't believe that Lucia would suddenly fall for him. He was worried about Dalen. As if reading his thoughts, Lucia said, Actually, I know why you don't dare to eat it. It's because of Dalen, right? You don't have to be afraid of him. It's just food. Besides, you're working for my company right now, so why are you afraid of him? I don't think Dalen is that great. On the contrary, in my eyes, you are much stronger than him. Lucia flattered. You are too kind, but no one can compare to him, Mark said. Don't feel so inferior. What I said was true. You just can't see your own worth. That's why you don't have confidence. Lucia flashed a wide smile. Mark was stunned. He thought to himself, does she really not know Dalen's capabilities, or does she want to harm me? Lucia looked at Mark and bit her lips. She felt wronged and coaxed, even if you don't eat, I've already brought food to your office. People will think that you ate it. So, Mark, how about you eat it? Mark looked at Lucia for a while, then sat down and said, Fine, I can eat, but tell me, why are you doing this? Lucia thought for a moment, then asked, Mark, how much does Dalen pay you? Mark was stunned. Why would she ask this? Dalen gave me shares. Mark told the truth and then looked strangely at Lucia. You didn't know? Lucia opened her mouth, but no sound came out. Mark nodded in understanding. Indeed, Lucia had no interest in such things. She was really not a businesswoman. If it were any other person, they would have already figured out these things. Just as Mark was thinking, he saw Lucia stand up and leave without a word. Mark was relieved, but when he saw the dinner she'd left on the coffee table, he frowned again. When Lucia returned to her office, she found Cole there waiting for her. How was it? Did Mark say that the food was very delicious? He didn't eat. Also, do you know how much the annual salary is that Dalen gave him? How much? Cole asked. Dalen gave Mark shares of the company. Lucia's head was spinning. What? Cole was shocked and dumbfounded. No matter how ignorant they were, they both knew how much shares in the company were worth. Who would accept such treatment? With so much money, it was normal for someone to not have a conscience or switch loyalties. No wonder he came to our company to be a vice president. After Cole finished speaking, he turned to look at Lucia. He had thought that, for Lucia's sake, Dalen had been fair about running the company. He wanted to say this to Lucia, but thinking about the conflict between them, he didn't say anything. Then what do we do now? Lucia asked, as she felt a headache coming on. Why don't we just forget about it? You can learn by yourself, Cole said. Now he felt that trying to convince Mark was even more difficult. Lucia looked depressed. Learning how to run the company would be difficult for someone like herself, who never studied business. Lucia thought this might be even more difficult than being in school. Lucia lingered in the office for almost an hour before she finally got up. I don't believe this. So what if he owns a stake in the company? I'll give half of my company's shares to Mark. Cole jumped in fright at Lucia's sudden slapping of the table, and when he heard Lucia's words, his face changed and dropped. Half? But that still might not be enough. You don't understand. I'll go find Mark. Lucia walked out of the office after she finished speaking. Cole didn't even have time to convince her to stop. Lucia walked to Mark's office. Without knocking, she opened the door. Mark, I'll tell you. Before Lucia could finish her sentence, her entire body froze in place. She was face to face with Dalen, who was sitting on the sofa. His legs were crossed, and he looked at her with a deep, fierce gaze. Mark acted as if he didn't see anything wrong with Lucia barging in, and said with an elite smile, Hello, boss. Boss my ass, Lucia thought. Lucia came back to her senses and turned around to leave. She walked out of the office, but as the door shut behind her, Lucia was left standing there in a daze. Why was Dalen here? Could it be her imagination? How could it be an illusion? Mark's expression just now explained everything. And what was she running for? This was her company. It wasn't Dalen's. The more Lucia thought about it, the more unconvinced she became. She pushed open the office door once again. Dalen and Mark looked up at her. Lucia suppressed her nervousness and sat down on the sofa. Dalen remained expressionless, but his gaze never left Lucia's face. Lucia cleared her throat and said, "I'm surprised that you have the free time to come to my company." "It's good for me to check up on you," Dalen said plainly. His black eyes were deep and serene. Lucia choked and silently cursed at how thick-skinned he was. Not wanting to argue with him, she directly asked, "What are you doing here? This is my company. Are you here with my permission?" Mark coughed lightly and stood up. "I have a call to make. I'll leave you two to talk." With that, he left. Lucia and Dalen were the only ones in the office. Lucia wished she could tear Mark apart. Did he do this on purpose? "What did you just say? I didn't hear you." Dalen held a cigarette between his slender fingers. His manner was casual enough, but his glare made Lucia swallow nervously. "I said, what are you doing here? Looking for Mark?" Dalen asked again. Dalen continued to fiddle with the cigarette in his hand and asked, "I heard that you brought food to Mark. How come I didn't know you could cook?" Lucia thought a myriad of hateful things about Mark. She now understood why Dalen was here. It was definitely because Mark had called him. "Of course I cook. When living alone, one must learn a lot of things. I'm not like you anymore. If you don't have food at home, there will be women who will cook for you," Lucia sneered. Dalen's face turned cold as he stared at her. Lucia did not want to stay in this dangerous place, so she stood up and said, "I still have things to do, Dalen. Please do as you wish and leave." Then she ran away, leaving Dalen sitting there by himself with a terrifyingly dark expression. Lucia rushed into the office. "What happened to you?" Cole could tell at a glance that something was wrong. "Dalen is here." Lucia closed the door to her office and pressed her body against it. "Now? Then I'll be going." Cole shuddered. "You're not allowed to leave," Lucia whispered harshly. "Why? Don't forget, Dalen thought that I was the one who gave you the miscarriage medicine, so you need to let me leave." Cole pleaded pitifully. "Then I'll go with you," Lucia said desperately. "Can't you just leave a bit after me?" Cole asked. "No." Lucia left the office with Cole. They did their best to skirt around Mark's office and ran to the elevator and hurriedly jumped into it. The two of them were speeding away from the company before either of them was able to heave a sigh of relief. Lucia resisted the urge to look behind them to see if Dalen had caught up, but there was no sign of him. Then again, why would Dalen chase after her? It's not like there were no women in the company, and he definitely had something to talk to Mark about. Maybe his visit had nothing to do with her. "What do you think Dalen was doing there?" Cole asked. "Was he looking for you?" "No, he came to find Mark, so I guess there was no reason for us to run away," Lucia said gloomily. Cole was relieved anyway. He didn't want to meet Dalen face to face. Cole had nightmares the last time Dalen had glared at him. "I won't try to recruit Mark. I think it's better for me to just learn how to run the company on my own," Lucia said in a low voice as she rested her head weakly on the window. "No problem. I can help you." Cole patted her shoulder to comfort her. No matter what the purpose of Dalen's appearance was, Lucia knew that it was bad news. Dalen was unreasonable. He was allowed to date other people, but she was not allowed to. If she started suddenly delivering food to Mark, Dalen definitely wouldn't allow it. The next day, when she saw Mark, Lucia glared at him before walking past. Mark did not mind and smiled back at her. When Lucia returned to her office, she saw that the thermal container had been returned. Soon, the company's New Year's party arrived. Lucia searched her closet for a long time, but couldn't find a new dress to wear. All her new clothes were in the mansion, all paid for by Dalen. And in her father's house, the clothes that were left behind were all worn and a bit outdated. Lucia thought to herself, "Well, I can't wear these clothes. They're not that old. I can look vintage." If she had known earlier, she would have listened to Cole and bought new clothes when he went out shopping. She had accompanied Cole to buy party clothes, but she was in no mood to try on dresses. Now she was regretting it. There was nothing to wear. At about 5 o'clock, Lucia settled on a dress and a coat and got into the car. When she got out of the car, she saw Cole standing at the entrance of the company. He was wearing a well-tailored suit and a green button-up shirt. His figure was not bad, even though he was wearing a coat. Lucia got out of the car and walked over. "What are you standing here for? Isn't it cold?" "I was waiting for you." "Waiting for me? You can wait inside. Are you stupid?" Lucia looked at Cole incredulously. "Hey, I'm standing here waiting for you. Can't you at least say thank you?" Cole said impatiently. "If you're stupid, then so be it. Why are you finding excuses for yourself?" Lucia said. Cole tried his best to calm down and forced a smile on his face. "Fine, I should have waited inside, okay?" Lucia, who was walking in, asked, "What business do you have waiting for me anyways?" "I said fine," Cole grunted. Lucia looked at him suspiciously. After Lucia entered, the doorman took her coat. She was wearing the same dress she'd worn to the party the previous winter, and it still fit her well. The dress was very ordinary, and the silhouette was very distinctive, and it had a low neckline. Lucia looked at the banquet and watched as people mingled and waited for the new year to start. Why did it feel different? Every detail had an air of grandeur, as if it were a supreme banquet. Lucia immediately spotted Dalen, who was separated by a crowd of people. Instantly, her entire body froze. Why is he here?" Lucia stuttered as she asked Cole. "I was waiting for you at the door because I wanted to tell you that, and you said I was stupid," Cole huffed. "Who invited him?" Lucia suppressed her voice. "This party was jointly organized with the Patrick family. He helped plan the whole thing," Cole whispered. Lucia looked around. No wonder there were so many people, and it was so luxurious. How could Mark waste so much money? Lucia felt unwell. "Can I just turn around and leave?" she asked. "Just now at the door, you could have left, but now you can't. He's already seen you." As soon as Cole finished his sentence, a company leader came to greet her. Cole gave Lucia a glass of wine and pressed it into her hand. Lucia smiled awkwardly as she spoke to the person who had just arrived. When she turned around, she saw Axel raise his glass towards her and smile. Lucia was stunned for a moment before she responded with a smile. Of course Axel would be here. When she looked over at Dalen again, she saw the coldness on Dalen's face and the sternness in his eyes. Then she saw Victoria walk to Dalen's side. Lucia turned her eyes away and pretended she did not see anything. While Cole was talking to his colleagues, Lucia went to the dining area to look for food. Since she was already here, she might as well enjoy herself. When Lucia walked into the dining area, she nearly drooled when she saw the dazzling array of delicacies that seemed like works of art. But no matter what, she was still the company's boss. She could not wolf down food in front of her employees and other guests. Just like everyone else, she put the delicacies on a plate and then ate them slowly. As she ate, Lucia's eyes lit up. She had never eaten anything so delicious. When the others saw Lucia eating, they didn't bother her. Besides, everyone knew that Lucia had a close relationship with the Patrick family. In the eyes of most people, Lucia belonged to Dalen. Axel smiled and said. Lucia looked at Axel's expression. She knew that he must have seen her uneasiness, which was why he said that. Lucia was touched. However, she had to remember that she was a married woman now. Furthermore, Dalen's possessiveness was extremely terrifying. Lucia was still wary of him, so she didn't dare to disobey him. When Lucia turned her head, she met Dalen's deep and severe eyes that were watching her and Axel closely, like a warning. She turned around and said to Axel, "I'm going to find Cole." "All right." Axel saw Lucia turn around and leave. Lucia walked to Cole, who was drinking wine in the corner. Lucia picked up a drink from the table and started drinking as well. She kept feeling like she was guilty, but what was there to be afraid of? At the end of the day, Dalen's will could not be defied. "Were you giving me and Axel a chance to talk?" Lucia asked. "What? Wasn't it inconvenient for you to talk while I was there?" Cole said with a smirk. "Besides, there are so many people at the party. What's wrong with you and Axel standing together? Isn't it normal?" Lucia sighed. It was normal for others, but not for Dalen. "Do you like the party?" Lucia asked. "I like it. I feel like I'm dreaming," Cole said. Lucia nodded. She put down the cup in her hand. "I'm going to the washroom." Cole wanted to follow, but was stopped by a friend who wanted to chat, so Lucia continued to the bathroom alone. Lucia was about to head to the ladies' restroom when she felt a powerful force pulling her into the men's room. She was pushed into a cubicle and the door slammed shut. Lucia snapped out of her daze and looked up at Dalen, who was standing in front of her with his shadow covering her. "What are you doing?" she asked. "Why were you talking to Axel?" Dalen's face was cold and dangerous. "What? We can't even talk as friends in public?" Lucia was outraged. "No, you can't," Dalen yelled. Lucia didn't answer. She didn't want to argue with him. She just wanted to get out of there. However, her way was blocked by Dalen. "Dalen, what are you doing?" Lucia was still struggling, but she couldn't break free, so she could only say angrily, "This is the men's restroom. Let me out." "Where are you in a rush to get to? Looking for Axel?" Dalen mocked. "Yeah, I'll go look for Axel, and you can go look for your Victoria. Don't worry about me, all right?" "Let go!" Lucia was so angry that she wanted to break Dalen's hand. However, the more she tried, the stronger Dalen's grip became. Lucia stomped her feet on the ground, tears welling up in her eyes. She must have been crazy. Lucia had betrayed him, but he had done her wrong as well. How could Axel keep his cool when he had such horrible relatives? Lucia wished she could destroy everything here. Lucia was so angry that her whole body was trembling. However, tears wouldn't stop rolling down her cheeks. Dalen wiped a tear from her cheek, and Lucia took the opportunity to push him away. She didn't even bother to look at Dalen as she pushed open the door and ran out. However, when she opened the door, she saw Axel, who had just entered the bathroom. Axel was stunned as he looked at the flustered Lucia. Lucia wiped the tears off her face, lowered her head, and ran away. Dalen walked out of the cubicle, coldly glanced at Axel, and prepared to walk out of the washroom. "Hey, why is Lucia crying?" Axel asked with concern. "Why would you ask?" Dalen looked at him with a sharp gaze. "I hope you two can make up," Axel said. "No need for you to meddle." Dalen turned around and left with a dark expression. Dalen walked into the reception area. He looked around with his dark eyes, but did not see Lucia. Spencer walked over. "Mr. Patrick, young madam has left." Dalen's expression was cold. He didn't say anything, but it was enough to scare the people standing nearby. Lucia didn't even say anything to Cole before she got into the car and left. The car drove for a long time. The light from the street lamps came on, and the mist in her eyes thickened. What game was Dalen playing? Wasn't it enough to flaunt the intimacy between Victoria and him at the party? Lucia felt a pain in her heart that made her cry. She was afraid that she would not be able to keep herself together at the party, so she fled. Victoria must be very proud of herself, but Lucia couldn't care less. When she reached her father's house and returned to her room, her phone rang. The caller ID wasn't clear on the cracked screen, so Lucia answered the call hesitantly. Cole's voice sounded. "Where are you? Are you still in the bathroom?" "I'm at home," Lucia explained. Cole was stunned for a moment before he asked, "Ah, So early? I'm sleepy. I want to go to bed, Lucia said. Are you okay? I'm fine. Cole didn't ask any further questions. He could easily guess why she left so early. It was clear that Lucia was angry when she saw Victoria at the party. Why was Victoria always following Dalen around like a lost puppy? She was too shameless. Didn't she know he was a married man? At this moment, Cole saw Dalen walk towards the door of the reception with his bodyguards following behind him. Cole followed him out just in time to see Dalen's car leave. It seemed like he didn't want to stay at the party either. Victoria didn't go with him. What kind of plot was this? Cole didn't understand. Mr. Patrick, are we going back to the castle? Spencer asked. Dalen was silent for a long time, but eventually he said, Take me to the bar. Spencer didn't say anything, but he wasn't surprised. Ever since Lucia and Dalen had started this fight, Dalen would go to bars almost every day and only return to the mansion very late. In the bar, Jeff walked to the door of Dalen's private room and walked in. He sat down on the sofa and said, I heard that you've been coming here every day to drink. Aren't you afraid that the bar will run out of wine? Then don't join me, Dalen said, without raising his head. I'm just worried for you. Jeff looked at Dalen and shook his head. All this for a woman? No one would believe it. Dalen drank the wine in his cup and leaned back lazily. He lit up a cigarette and took a deep drag, causing smoke to instantly fill the air. Somehow, he was still sexy and charming. Who told you this is for a woman? Dalen asked expressionlessly. Isn't it? Jeff smiled faintly. Didn't you and Lucia separate? Dalen raised his dark eyes and glared at Jeff. The more he looked, the more annoyed he became. He said, Since you know, why don't you find me a woman? Jeff was surprised. Are you serious? Yes. The corner of Jeff's mouth rose. That's easy. I want the one that's staying with you, Dalen said. Jeff's smile froze on his face as his eyes turned cold. No. As long as she doesn't lack the important body parts, I don't see why not. Dalen laughed wickedly. Didn't you see how ugly she is? Jeff's expression was already terrible. I have a strong taste, don't you know? Dalen said. At this moment, the door to the room was pushed open. Maddie stuck her head in and saw Jeff inside. Her eyes immediately lit up. Jeff, are you really here? Then she walked in. Jeff was stunned and immediately stood up and pulled her away without saying a word. Dalen was chewing on his cigarette as he leaned his head against the back of the sofa and closed his eyes, allowing the smoke to fill his lungs. Jeff dragged Maddie all the way out of the bar. Her wrist hurt even after it was released. Feeling wronged, she rubbed her wrist and looked at Jeff, who had a strange look on his face. She asked, Jeff, what's wrong? Who told you to come to the bar? Jeff looked at her coldly. I heard you were at the bar, so I came to see you. Maddie did not think that she had done anything wrong. Jeff, did you come to the bar to drink? Don't we have wine at home? Why did you come here? I didn't come to the bar to drink. Jeff looked at her coldly. Then what are you doing here? Maddie asked. I was looking for a woman. Jeff yelled in frustration. A car drove up to the curb and Jeff opened the door. Get in. Jeff suppressed his growl. Maddie saw that Jeff was in a bad mood, so she obediently got in the car. After Jeff followed behind her, the car drove away from the bar. Originally, he had simply wanted to rub salt into Dalen's wound. He hadn't expected Dalen to say something like that. Jeff looked at Maddie with his dark eyes, but he couldn't find any hint of beauty in her. Dalen was asking for trouble. It made Jeff suspicious. Jeff's serious gaze made Maddie's hair stand on end, but she did not dare to say a word. You need to go back to your mom, Jeff said plainly. Why? I don't want to. When Maddie heard this, she couldn't believe her ears. You think it's up to you and what you want? Jeff asked coldly. He acted as if there was no room for negotiation. Maddie panicked and immediately moved to the seat beside Jeff, grabbing his jacket. Jeff! Sit back down. Jeff frowned. Maddie had no choice but to move back and say, Jeff, why do you want me to go back? I'm living well here, and I don't give you any trouble, and I didn't spend any of the money you gave me. If you don't go back, what do you want to do? You have to leave, Jeff said. Jeff, please don't make me go back, okay? I'll go back after the new year, okay? Maddie said. Will you? Don't be smart in front of me. Jeff looked at her coldly. Maddie, who had been exposed, bit her lips. If not for her discolored face, it would have been obvious that she was blushing. Jeff, I'm willing to do anything you want me to. Just don't send me back, okay? Maddie begged. Jeff looked at Maddie's teary eyes and felt a burst of irritation in his heart. He didn't say anything, but Maddie definitely couldn't stay at his house for much longer. Not only must he send her back, but he must also never let her near him again. There was a stifling silence. Jeff didn't look any better after they got out of the car, so Maddie didn't ask anymore. After going to school for a month, she hadn't made any friends. The boys thought she was ugly. The girls thought she was a freak. She always heard people talking behind her back. Her classmates put disgusting insects in her bag, or they put glue on her chair. Maddie would fall for it at first, but she got smarter. It would be better to be alert. After school, Maddie waited for the school bus at the school gate. There were quite a few people on the school bus, and Maddie pretended not to hear the people pointing fingers and whispering at her from behind. One of the girls behind her yelled and sprayed a cold liquid on Maddie's face. Maddie was taken aback. She raised her hand to wipe it, realizing it was milk. Not only was her face covered in milk, even her body was covered in milk. The girl who spilled the milk didn't apologize. Instead, she laughed with the other girls. Maddie didn't react, though. She continued to stand there, waiting for the school bus. Beyond the gate, there was a black luxury car parked. Jeff looked at Maddie from inside. He didn't know if the girls felt that waiting for the bus was too boring, or if they felt that Maddie was just easy to bully. The girls started to play around, and one of them jabbed the tip of her umbrella at Maddie's waist. Ah! The pain made Maddie scrunch her forehead and cover her waist with her hands. She turned around to look at the girl behind her. The girls arrogantly asked, "What are you looking at? Ugly?" "So you're bullying me just because I'm ugly?" Maddie asked. "Did we bully you?" the girls taunted. Maddie remained silent. "Come on, say something." The leading girl was especially arrogant as she pushed Maddie. Maddie stepped back and did not fight back. "Look at your ugly appearance. How can you have the nerve to be in the same class as us?" The girl with the umbrella was about to poke Maddie in the stomach again. However, before the tip of the umbrella could touch her, a big hand suddenly grabbed the umbrella. Jeff's face was cold. He pulled the umbrella from the girl's hand and hit the girl. Ah! The girl screamed and fell to the ground in surprise. The other girls were terrified. Before they could even react, Jeff spun the umbrella around threateningly and the girls ran off. Maddie was dumbstruck. She looked at Jeff in disbelief. "Jeff!" Jeff threw away the umbrella. When he looked at Maddie, the coldness in his eyes was so clear. Maddie swallowed all the words she wanted to say and got into the car. The scenery outside the car window continuously passed. Maddie occasionally looked outside and occasionally at the gloomy-looking Jeff. "Are you an idiot?" Jeff asked, finally breaking the silence. "What? I'm not an idiot," Maddie said defensively. "Yes, you are. You wouldn't just defend yourself." Jeff had been extremely angry when he saw the scene. He wanted to pry open Maddie's brain to see what was inside. "Didn't you say not to cause trouble?" Maddie's voice lowered. "What was there to be afraid of? If anything happens to you, I'll just take the blame," Jeff yelled. "Then, even if you did, you would send me back, wouldn't you?" Maddie immediately asked. Jeff's expression froze. "You didn't retaliate because you were afraid that I would send you back?" Maddie pursed her lips and nodded. Jeff tugged at his collar, showing his annoyance. Here, suddenly, was an anxiety that had never existed in him before. Maddie saw that Jeff was still upset, so she asked carefully, "Jeff, you won't send me back, will you? I didn't cause any trouble." Jeff looked at her coldly. He was so intimidating. Maddie immediately retracted her gaze and didn't ask any further. Along the way, Maddie was still thinking about the girls. Will it be worse tomorrow? The next day, after class, Maddie walked to the bathroom. After using the toilet, she returned to her next classroom. As soon as she arrived at the classroom door, one of the girls who Jeff had scared yesterday pointed at Maddie and said, "Dad, it's her. She told that guy to hit me. There were other girls who were beaten up as well." Maddie looked at the girls who pointed at her, then looked at the middle-aged man beside the girls. The man walked in front of Maddie, his body blocking her exit as he viciously asked, "Did you call someone to beat up my daughter?" No. It was all a misunderstanding yesterday," Maddie said, feeling slightly uneasy. Maddie couldn't face the man in front of her. "A misunderstanding? My little girl has a bruise on the back of her neck." The man pulled the girl over and pulled the collar of her sweater down. Maddie saw a large bruise on the side of the girl's neck. It was still slightly swollen. Maddie was shocked. She didn't expect Jeff to be so harsh. Seeing the injury with her own eyes, she was terrified. Me too, the other girls said. Jeff hadn't hit them, but they had fallen as they had run away. The man slapped Maddie's head. "Was it you who called him?" Maddie's expression changed. Just when Maddie started to explain the cause of this incident, her vision slightly shifted. She saw Jeff walking over with a bunch of unfriendly bodyguards behind him. Maddie had a bad feeling about this. The others were also shocked by his sudden arrival. "Which one is bothering you?" Jeff stopped and looked over the small mob. None of the girls or the man responded. "This one?" Jeff asked as he sarcastically gestured to the man. Before Maddie could regain her senses, she heard a series of miserable shrieks. When she looked over, the man's hand hung awkwardly at his side like a broken branch. Jeff looked at the man as if he was looking at straw and said, "You can settle the score with me." "Daddy!" The girl was also scared stiff. Her face was pale, and she could not even move from where she stood. She could only shout a warning. When the principal heard the sound, he hurriedly went into the classroom. "Mr. Holmes!" Jeff looked at him coldly. "Have you become an incompetent principal?" "I'm sorry, Mr. Holmes, it was my mistake. I definitely won't let it happen again in the future." The principal's forehead was already starting to break out in a sweat. "This girl is being bullied here. How can I not care?" Jeff acted like it was a matter of great importance. Yes, I'll get these people out of here immediately," the principal quickly promised. "There's no need for that. I'm not such an unreasonable person." Before Jeff could finish his words, his eyes darkened. "However, if it happens again, I will break someone else's hand." Jeff's words were obviously a threat. The principal didn't dare to disobey him. Maddie was still standing there in a daze while the others dispersed in fear. Jeff turned around and looked at her. Suddenly, she rushed towards him and crashed into his chest, hugging him tightly. Jeff was shocked. His eyes were even more stunned. After a moment, he roughly pushed Maddie away. With a dark expression, he asked, "What are you doing?" Maddie, who had been pushed away by Jeff, didn't feel uncomfortable at all. She didn't look so scared or worried. With a cautious expression on her face, she asked, "Jeff, do you admit that we're a family?" Jeff's gloomy expression froze for a moment. "I'm so happy," Maddie said joyfully. Jeff's expression changed. "You're too stupid to be my family." "I'm not stupid, and anyone wants to bully me in the future, I'll just announce your name," Maddie said. "You sure know how to handle yourself," Jeff said with an unfriendly, sarcastic expression. Maddie smiled sweetly. "Jeff, I'm not going to talk to you anymore. I'm going back to class." She turned around and ran. After a few steps, she stopped and looked back into Jeff's deep black eyes. She said, "I'm glad that I came to find you." With that, she ran away. Jeff looked at her back as she hurried away, and the corner of his mouth twitched as if he was infected. After realizing what he was doing, his expression turned ugly. Maddie definitely could not stay with him for long. The next day, when Maddie arrived at the classroom, she found out that the girl who bullied her was no longer there. Listening to the gossip, she realized that the girl had transferred to another school. It seemed like she had been scared away. Ever since Jeff showed up, no one dared to bully her. Some students even tried to please her. Maddie felt that it was definitely better than being bullied. Soon, Maddie was doing better in school, and this was all thanks to Jeff. Although Jeff's mood was bad, having a temper and terrifying eyes could really pay off. After all, the reason why she was able to now walk the halls of the university so freely was due to Jeff. A few days later, when Maddie ran out of the school gate, she saw a familiar black car waiting outside. A happy smile immediately appeared on her face as she ran forward. After the bodyguard opened the door, she ducked inside. "Jeff!" Inside, Jeff was sitting lazily with a sharp look in his eyes. "Did you pass your test?" Maddie was stunned and shook her head honestly. "I don't know." "I wonder why you're smiling so happily then." Jeff frowned. "That's because I'm happy to see you." Maddie spoke the truth. Jeff was slightly stunned. He turned his eyes away from Maddie's clear and trusting gaze. He looked out the window. "Jeff, did you come specifically to bring me home? Aren't you busy?" Maddie asked. "I'm taking you to buy new clothes," Jeff said. "Eh? Why?" Maddie asked blankly. "For the new year," Jeff said plainly. "So you want to buy me new clothes for the new year?" Maddie nodded in understanding. After getting out of the car, Jeff took Maddie around the shopping mall. Maddie's entire body was filled with the liveliness of a young girl. In the past, even if she had the money, she wouldn't spend it at such a high-end shopping mall. She had never come here before, so she was filled with curiosity. Jeff just let her do whatever she wanted. When they arrived at a woman's clothing store, Maddie went up to Jeff and asked, "Jeff, no matter what I want, you will pay for it, right?" "Well, do you have any money?" Jeff asked. When Maddie didn't answer, he rolled his eyes. "Yes, I'll pay for your clothes." Maddie grinned and went to pick out clothes. It didn't take long for her to find a bunch that she liked. When Maddie came out of the fitting room, Jeff was stunned for a moment. However, no change could be seen in his expression. "Jeff, do you like it?" Maddie asked as she jumped in front of Jeff in her new clothes. Jeff turned to the shop assistant. "We'll take this one." The shop assistant nodded and blushed. "Jeff, why is she blushing?" Maddie whispered in confusion. Jeff's expression was cold, and he didn't answer. Maddie tactfully stopped talking. She felt that Jeff was truly unpredictable. After buying the new clothes, Maddie wore them out of the store. Jeff glanced at Maddie's shoes with disgust, and then led her to the shoe store. While Maddie was still looking at all kinds of beautiful shoes, Jeff glanced around and selected a pair for her. Maddie didn't expect Jeff to choose her shoes, and when she put them on, she found that they matched the new clothes she was wearing perfectly. Maddie felt that Jeff was being really good to her today. It made her feel very happy. However, the price of clothes and shoes really stunned her. Even if she had $1 million, she wouldn't spend it on expensive clothes. But Jeff didn't even blink at the totals. "Jeff, can we go back now?" Maddie asked after she was tired from all the shopping. "Let's go eat," Jeff suggested. "Are we eating out?" Maddie asked. "Yes," Jeff replied plainly. Maddie didn't care. As long as she ate with Jeff, they could eat anywhere he wanted. They walked into a restaurant and were led to a private room. After Maddie walked in, she was stopped in her tracks. The smile on her face turned into surprise as she looked at the woman who was sitting inside. Stacy stood up and looked at her daughter, whom she had not seen for a long time. Apart from the fact that her face and hair had not changed at all, Stacy could tell with a glance what kind of life Maddie was living, just by her clothes and shoes. Stacy looked at Jeff with gratitude and guilt. "Thank you. I'm sorry to have troubled you." "No need to thank me." Jeff pulled out a chair and sat down expressionlessly. Maddie followed his lead and sat down stiffly on her seat. Stacy turned to her daughter and said in a pained and exasperated tone, "You've had your fun. Now you can come home, right? I've been worried about you." Maddie looked up at her mother and asked, "You came to take me back?" "That's right. What does it look like? The matter of transferring schools has been settled, right?" Stacy asked Jeff. Jeff nodded. Maddie looked at Jeff in disbelief. Now she understood why Jeff was so good to her all of a sudden, and why he accompanied her to buy clothes. It was to send her away. He didn't even tell her. "Jeff, how is your father?" Stacy asked. 20 years and he's still the same." Jeff lowered his gaze. "That's good. You didn't tell your father about Maddie, did you?" "Nope." Stacy nodded with a smile, an unnatural expression on her face. In the past, she was also a member of the Holmes family, but because of her rebellion, she'd become destitute. She no longer could be involved with the Holmes family. If it wasn't for Maddie, she would never have seen Jeff again. The dishes were quickly served. While Maddie was eating, Stacy gave her some extra food from off her plate. Maddie ate in silence, not saying a word. Stacy and Jeff didn't actually know each other very well. When she had left, Jeff was still young. Later on, she had heard some rumors about Jeff, saying that he was extremely vicious. She didn't expect that he would keep Maddie for so long. However, this didn't mean that her relationship with Jeff had improved. Thus, the atmosphere at the dining table was very depressing. Jeff didn't say anything. The air was cold and still, all the way until they finished their meal and left. When they reached the door, Maddie was about to get into a taxi when she was pulled aside by her mom. "How can you not say anything to your host?" Maddie's back stiffened. Then, after a few seconds of hesitation, she turned around and met Jeff's dark eyes. "Thank you for taking care of me all this time." Jeff didn't say anything and looked at her with his deep eyes. After Maddie finished her sentence, she turned around and got into the taxi. She did not look at Jeff again. "Jeff, thank you so much. If it wasn't for you, I wouldn't have been able to bring her back." After Stacy finished her sentence, she realized that Jeff wasn't going to say anything, so she guessed that he didn't want to discuss things any further. She turned around and got into the taxi. As the taxi drove off, Maddie didn't even look back at Jeff. Tears welled up in her eyes as she fought for them to not fall. When Stacy saw Maddie's face looking out of the window, she knew that her daughter was angry. "Little Maddie, you still don't want to go back to me?" "I'm old enough to live by myself," Maddie said. "Don't be willful. How would you live by yourself?" "I'm only thinking of what's best for you," Stacy sighed. "Don't you still have your husband? Why are you so worried about me? Or did you divorce him?" Maddie turned her head and asked. "Of course not. I've been living a good life with him, and he's been nice to me, and he's been nice to you. Why would I divorce him? I just don't know why you don't like him, Stacy said with exasperation. Maddie turned her face away, her expression ugly. I'm free to dislike whoever I want. Fine. If you don't like him, fine. You'll understand in the future. But don't give him a hard time. He's really trying. Stacy didn't know how to deal with Maddie's moods. How did Jeff treat you while you stayed with him? Stacy asked, trying to change the subject. It wasn't too bad. Maddie originally wanted to say it was good, but when she thought about Jeff's extreme actions, she changed her mind. That's good. Don't go searching for him again, though, Stacy warned. Maddie looked at the hesitant Stacy and asked, Why? What's wrong with him? Nothing. Stacy patted Maddie's head. It's good that you're back. However, Maddie didn't feel that it was good at all. After a few turns, they arrived back at her mother's house. Their family didn't have much money, and they lived in a rough neighborhood. Maddie felt a wave of disgust in her heart when she thought of the man that her mother was married to. Why are you leaving? Stacy asked after they got home and Maddie walked the opposite direction of the house. I want to buy some food from the supermarket, Maddie said. I'll go with you. No need, I'll be back soon, Maddie said as she rushed out. Stacy didn't have any doubts and just said, Then be quick about it. I will. Maddie looked at Stacy, who had tricked her with a sour feeling in her heart. It wasn't that she didn't want to come back home, but she really didn't want to hurt her mother's feelings. When Stacy disappeared down the hall, Maddie turned around and ran out of the neighborhood in a hurry. Stacy went into the house, where her husband Dylan was cooking. Knowing that Maddie would come back today, he had cooked a lot of dishes that she loved to eat. Dylan hurried out of the kitchen when he heard the front door open, but he only saw Stacy. He then asked, Where's Maddie? Out buying some food, Stacy said. Dylan's expression immediately changed. He threw his apron on the ground. How could you let her buy food by herself? What does it matter? She's an adult. Dylan, where are you going? When Stacy saw Dylan run out, she had no idea what was going on and had no choice but to chase after him. He walked around the supermarket for a bit, but still couldn't find Maddie. Stacy wondered, where is she? Wasn't she here to buy food? You need to ask. She ran away. Dylan shouted at Stacy with a bad temper. What? Why would she run? I've already brought her back, and she was already at my doorstep. Stacy did not understand why Maddie would run again. Did she hate being at home that much? Tell me, how did you become a parent? You can't even look after a child, Dylan accused. Anyone listening into the conversation would think that Dylan was the parent of the lost child, and Stacy was just a stepmother. Dylan was more anxious than Stacy. She must have gone to Jeff's place again. I'll call. After Stacy finished speaking, she took out her cell phone. At this moment, Jeff had just arrived at his house. He was scowling, and no one dared to approach him. After entering the hall, he pulled at his tie in annoyance and threw his jacket on the sofa. The servant respectfully took the suit and put it away. Then everything became quiet. Such a contrast from when Maddie was there. Just as he thought so, his phone rang. Jeff saw the number on it and frowned. He answered, What is it? Jeff, did Maddie come to find you? She's gone again. If she goes to your place, can you ask her to give me a call? I want to bring her back. Stacy's voice sounded. She ran away again? Jeff's gaze was very cold. Yes. We were already at the house, and she suddenly said that she wanted to buy food, so I let her go without thinking about it. However, when I went to the supermarket to look for her, she wasn't there. I really don't know what to do. Stacy's voice was hoarse from trying not to cry. Jeff hung up the phone with a dark expression and called Maddie directly. However, Maddie did not answer his call. No one dared to refuse his call. The cold air around Jeff became even colder. Jeff had a rule. He only called people once. Jeff didn't believe that Maddie hadn't seen his phone number. Jeff was right. Maddie had indeed seen it. Looking at the caller ID, she was in a daze, but she did not want to answer it. Alone in a corner of the street, she hugged her cell phone and said to herself, "Why did you call me? Didn't you say you don't want me? Why do you care so much?" Maddie looked at the name Jeff. The more she looked at it, the angrier she got. Hearing the ringtone, she got even angrier, so she just turned off the phone. A robotic female voice spoke in Jeff's ear, causing his face to turn dark, and he almost smashed his phone. If Maddie did come to his house, she would regret it. No one dared to take a deep breath. After 2 hours, Maddie still hadn't appeared. According to the distance, she wouldn't need that much time to walk from her mom's house. When Jeff called again, her phone was still turned off. Jeff's expression was outraged. Maddie obviously didn't want to contact anyone. "Come with me to look for someone," he growled at his bodyguards. Jeff went to a detective and checked the traffic cameras first. He discovered that Maddie had not returned downtown. He then went to the neighborhood where Maddie's mother lived and checked the traffic surveillance. Finally, he found out that Maddie had gone to another city. Jeff ordered a car to drive him there. Along the way, Jeff's expression was tense. He was certain that he could find her, but the longer they searched, the more unsightly Jeff's expression became. As the sky gradually darkened, Maddie did not go to a hotel. Her money was all given to her by Jeff, and apparently he didn't want her. So why should she spend his money? Although Maddie was poor, she had a stubborn temper sometimes. She had slept under a bridge when she was a beggar, so it wasn't a problem to find another place to sleep outside. Maddie walked along the corner, rummaging through trash cans for a quilt. It would be easier if it was summer, but it was cold outside. Even if she did cover herself with a blanket, she might still freeze to death. While Maddie was busy rummaging through the trash bin, 3 young men walked up to her. As they passed by, one of them looked at her figure with a wretched expression. Then he stopped. Maddie was startled. Her head, which was buried in the trash can, turned to look at them. With this turn, the 3 men were shocked because of Maddie's ugly face. "Heavens, where did this come from? Just one look and you'll lose your appetite." As the young man spoke, he even spat towards the side with a look of disgust. "She is indeed ugly, but her figure is not bad. Lady, how old are you?" Seeing that they didn't look like good people, Maddie turned around and started to walk away. However, the road ahead was suddenly blocked. "Don't go. You haven't answered me." Maddie turned around, but was blocked on every side. "Didn't you just say I'm ugly? Why won't you let me go?" Maddie asked one of them. "Well, I guess this guy is interested in you. I have to help him," the man said. Maddie was well aware of what this person meant by help. But what was she to do? 3 people surrounded her. How could she escape? "Please!" Maddie tried to look panicked and pointed ahead. When the 3 of them looked over, Maddie had already started running. They soon realized she had tricked them, and when they came back to their senses, they saw Maddie running away, so they chased after her. "How dare you lie to us? Chase after her!" When Maddie heard the sound of footsteps behind her, she was terrified and ran as fast as she could. She felt as if her entire chest was jumping in panic. But no matter how fast she ran, she couldn't outrun 3 grown men. Soon the road in front of her was blocked. "Why aren't you running anymore?" one of the men said with nasty sarcasm. "You better let me go, or else—" Maddie wanted to threaten him. "Or what?" The men laughed in a vulgar manner, not caring in the slightest. "Otherwise, I'll call the police." Maddie still had some hope in her heart. She hoped that these people could be scared away. However, they weren't scared. Instead, they laughed. "Okay, sure. Go to the police," one of them teased rudely. Maddie's expression changed when she heard their obscenities. It was extremely disgusting. Just as she was feeling helpless and didn't know what to do, the men came up to her and grabbed her. "Let's go. I promise we'll let you have a good time too." "Let go!" Maddie struggled, but she couldn't stop them. Seeing a couple pass by, she shouted at the top of her lungs, "Save me! Save me!" Not only did the man and woman not save her, they even quickly shuffled away, not willing to get involved. Maddie's heart turned cold as she looked at them. Why didn't they help her? The men dragged Maddie into an alley where no one was around. Not far away was a trash can, and there was a sour smell coming from it. However, no matter what, it couldn't compare to the fear in Maddie's heart right now. She fell to the ground and looked at the young man who was approaching her, undoing his belt. She was shocked. She did not understand why he wanted her, even when she was so ugly. The man from before said her figure was not bad. Was it her clothes? When she was with Jeff, she always wore such clothes, and it was never a problem. She didn't want to. When the man's hand reached toward her, Maddie was so scared that she closed her eyes and shouted, "Ah!" Just as she cried out, she heard a scream that was even more miserable than her own. And the man's hand never reached her body. She was thinking, what's going on? Maddie opened her eyes nervously. She saw the 3 men lying on the ground as they moaned in pain while spitting out blood. Then she saw the 2 long legs in front of her, straight and sturdy. Maddie was stunned. She looked up and saw Jeff's face. He was looking down at her. Maddie looked at him in disbelief. What? Jeff? Wait, why was Jeff here? Why would Jeff come here? Maddie wondered if she was dreaming, but looking at the 3 miserable men on the ground, she knew it was real. "How long are you going to sit on the ground for? Do you want me to pick you up?" Jeff's voice was colder than the weather. Maddie came back to her senses, her expression stiff. She got up from the ground. After pausing for a moment, she turned around and ran. Jeff's face turned completely black. After a whole day of searching, he was in a very bad mood. Not only did Maddie not say thank you, she even wanted to run away. He ran after her at an extremely fast speed and grabbed onto Maddie's collar. "Ah!" Maddie could no longer run away. "No more running," Jeff huffed. "If you carry me, I won't be able to run away," Maddie insisted. Jeff rolled his eyes and shoved Maddie into the car. He would not show any mercy. When Jeff ducked into the car, she curled up by the door, looked at Jeff's dark face and asked, "Jeff, you wouldn't want to beat me up, right?" Jeff sighed and his face softened. "Of course not." The car drove away steadily. Jeff looked at her with an expressionless face. "Why didn't you go home?" Maddie pursed her lips and didn't say anything. "Did you not hear me?" Jeff frowned. "Didn't I already tell you that I don't want to go back?" Maddie argued. "The reason." "There is no reason. I just don't want to go back." Maddie turned her face and looked out the window at the night scenery passing by. Jeff combed his fingers through his neat hair in annoyance. If he hadn't arrived in time, he couldn't bear to think about what would have happened next. Just thinking about it, Jeff's face turned even darker. Noting Jeff's cold face and silence, Maddie promised him carefully, "Jeff, don't worry. Even if I don't go back, I won't bother you again." Jeff looked over with a stern expression. Maddie immediately turned her face away. "I'll send you back," Jeff said. Maddie was stunned for a moment before she panicked. "I don't want to go back." "It's not up to you." Maddie was frightened and her face turned pale. and Jeff's black eyes narrowed as he looked at Maddie's reaction. Why was she so frightened when he was only sending her home? He actually became curious and wanted to know what would happen after he sent Maddie back. Maddie didn't look at Jeff. Tears streamed down her face as she looked out the window. Would Jeff really send her home? Maddie felt her entire body stiffen. Her hands kept squeezing the edge of the seat. The car soon stopped. Maddie looked out the window. It didn't seem like they were at her mom's house yet. It had only been 10 minutes. Jeff saw that Maddie didn't move after he had already gotten out of the car, so he said patiently, "Are you coming?" Maddie snapped out of her daze and got out of the car. She saw a plane parked nearby. "Are we flying somewhere?" Maddie asked. Jeff ignored her and headed straight for the plane. Maddie, who was originally following behind him, gradually came to a stop. When no one was looking, she turned around and ran for it. Hearing her steps behind him, Jeff turned around abruptly and saw Maddie running away. With a stern look in his eyes, he shouted, "Capture her!" The bodyguard chased after her and grabbed her wrist. Maddie immediately opened her mouth and bit down on his hand. The bodyguard loosened his grip painfully. Maddie broke free and continued to run. In front of her was a staircase leading down, but Maddie was so flustered that she didn't see it and stepped on empty air. Jeff's expression suddenly changed as he caught up with her and realized what was about to happen. His figure flashed as he grabbed Maddie's hand and pulled her back from falling. "Ah!" Maddie crashed into Jeff, and the two of them fell onto the ground. Maddie's head hurt, and she felt dizzy. "Ah, it hurts." Maddie covered her forehead. "Maddie, what are you doing?" Jeff roared. "I want to run away," Maddie whispered. Jeff was furious. The veins on the back of his hands were bulging, but he couldn't touch her. Maddie only spoke the truth. She just didn't want to go back. Maddie said painfully, "Since you don't want me anymore, I'll stay away from you. Wouldn't it be better if I didn't bother you? Why must you send me back?" Jeff's face turned ugly. "You're just going to say it like that?" Maddie's face turned hot. Seeing Jeff get up, she also got up. A sharp pain came from Maddie's ankle, causing her to stumble and sit back on the ground. Jeff frowned and squatted down to check her foot. Her ankle was already red and swollen. Jeff pinched the bone with his hand, and tears welled up in Maddie's eyes. "It's just a sprain," Jeff said officially. "Then what should we do?" Maddie asked. "If the bone isn't broken, then everything should be fine, right?" Jeff hesitated for a moment before he picked Maddie up. Maddie was so scared that her hands immediately clung onto Jeff's broad shoulders. Jeff carried her to the plane. After getting on, Jeff told the bodyguard, "Get the first aid kit." The bodyguard went to get it. Jeff took the medicine box and started rubbing cold ointment on Maddie's ankle that made her leg tremble. Jeff looked at her expressionlessly. "Bear with it. This will help." Jeff massaged her ankle with his hands. Maddie cried, wincing in pain. "Ah! Jeff, how can I endure this? It hurts so much." Jeff was so scared by her scream that he jumped. "Stop shouting. Take a deep breath." Maddie took a deep breath, in and out. But she didn't dare to scream, afraid that Jeff's concentration would break. Jeff massaged her ankle gently, and slowly his expression changed and softened. Maddie's breaths became deeper and louder. In the end, Jeff couldn't take it anymore and said, "Okay, you can be done taking deep breaths." Maddie, who was about to take another deep breath, stopped in the middle of it and let the air out as quietly as she could. "Jeff, you told me to take a deep breath," Maddie said carefully. Jeff's expression changed as he let go of her feet. "Are you done?" Maddie looked at her ankles. There was a faint yellow residue of medicinal ointment on her fair skin. Her ankle was still red and swollen, but it felt much better than before. "Thank you," Maddie said. Jeff didn't say anything. Maddie felt uneasy, but she did not forget what Jeff had said at the beginning. The plane had taken off while Jeff was rubbing her ankle, and now they were flying in the sky. Maddie wondered, would she be sent home when the plane landed? Right now, she couldn't even run if she wanted to. Maddie could only beg Jeff, "Jeff, can you please not send me back? As long as you don't send me back, I'm willing to do anything you want me to do." Seeing that Jeff was silent, she begged again, "Jeff." "Shut up." Maddie was so frightened that her body trembled. She stopped talking. Maddie turned in her chair, looking out at the sky. She was a bit scared, but she had made up her mind. If Jeff sent her back, she would think of a way to escape after Jeff left. She absolutely did not want to go back. It was too terrifying to go back. Suddenly, Maddie felt very sleepy. Due to the initial shock, she relaxed and curled up on the sofa, falling asleep. Jeff looked over at Maddie's face. Her eyelashes were very long, and her eyebrows were naturally curved. Looking past her flaws, he thought she could actually be pretty cute. As Maddie gradually regained consciousness, her eyes opened. However, she realized she was in a familiar room and lying on a familiar bed, and her face instantly turned puzzled. She lifted the blanket and moved to get off the bed. Just when Maddie was about to get out of bed, Jeff appeared in the bedroom and looked at her. "Don't try getting out of bed." "Huh?" Maddie was at a loss for a moment. Then she remembered her injured ankle, and she understood Jeff's intention. "Jeff, why am I back here?" Maddie asked. "If you don't like it, I can send you home," Jeff said indifferently. "No!" Maddie hurriedly refused. Thinking of something, she asked, "But didn't you dislike my living here? I can leave. I can live at school. Lots of the students live in the dorms." "Say one more word and I really will send you back," Jeff threatened. Maddie's neck shrunk back. Did she say something wrong? Wasn't it better for Jeff if she were to live on campus? "Bring it in," Jeff instructed servants in the hall. Maddie raised her eyes and saw the breakfast that was brought in. The servants set the small table in front of her on the bed. This kind of special treatment made Maddie a little uncomfortable. She had never been treated like this before. She looked at Jeff. Originally, she wanted to say that he didn't need to do this for her. However, Maddie swallowed her words when she saw Jeff's intense gaze. She didn't dare to speak anymore. Once Maddie started eating, Jeff turned around and left. As Maddie ate, she couldn't help but grin. Actually, Jeff wasn't that bad. Otherwise, he wouldn't have let her live here, would he? Maddie finished her breakfast and sat on the bed in a daze. After thinking for a while, she took out her cell phone and called her mother. After she dialed the number, the call was quickly connected. "Mom," she started, but Stacy cut her off. "Maddie, where are you?" Stacy's anxious voice sounded. "I'm with Jeff," Maddie said. Stacy heaved a sigh of relief. "Oh, Maddie, how many times have I told you not to trouble him? And it's almost the new year. It's not good for you to do this." "Jeff said that I can live here," Maddie said. "Did he say that?" Stacy was surprised because she knew Jeff's temper very well. To be honest, she was still worried about Maddie being so close to Jeff. "Mom, you don't have to worry about me. I will be fine here, and I will also continue studying at the university. If you miss me, or if I miss you, you can come here and see me, can't you?" Maddie said. "But if that's the case..." Stacy wanted to say something, but her phone was snatched away by Dylan. "Maddie, listen to your mother. If you live in someone else's house, won't you?" Maddie's face immediately became flustered when she heard the voice. She immediately hung up the phone. "Hello? Maddie? Maddie?" Dylan shouted twice into the phone. When he looked at the screen, he saw that the call had ended. Dylan pushed the phone into Stacy's hand angrily. Stacy defended Maddie's choice. "Don't be angry. If she wants to stay there, then she'll stay. I'll pick her up after the new year." Dylan got angry when he heard that. "Didn't you say that your brother, who is not related to you by blood, isn't to be trifled with? You can't let Maddie stay there, can you? Are you really that bad of a mother?" "I don't like this either, but look at Maddie's reaction. I know you want to be closer to her, but this kind of thing is better done slowly." Stacy felt that Dylan was too eager to force a relationship with Maddie. However, finding a man who was interested in her daughter was extremely valuable. Stacy felt more or less grateful in her heart. "I know how to take things slow. But what will people think of us if Maddie is living with someone else?" Dylan argued. "Then what should we do?" Stacy asked. Dylan paced back and forth. When he stopped, he thought of a solution. "The two of us will personally bring her back." Stacy always listened to her husband, so she immediately agreed with Dylan's plan. Stacy thought that if the two of them went to pick her up, Maddie would be touched and return home. So the two of them drove over there. It was almost noon when they arrived. Jeff was on the phone in the living room conducting business. Just as he was about to leave, a servant came over. "Mr. Holmes, Miss Smith's parents have come to bring her home." Jeff's black eyes narrowed as he looked at the servant. The sharp gaze made the servant lower his head. "Let them in." "Yes, sir." After a moment, Dylan and Stacy walked in. Jeff's gaze fell on the middle-aged man beside Stacy. Dylan had never met a man with such sharp eyes. "Jeff, I'm sorry to have caused you trouble. I didn't know that Maddie would come back. My husband and I are here to bring her home," Stacy said, gesturing to the man. "This is Dylan, my current husband." Jeff retracted his gaze. "Take a seat." Dylan and Stacy sat down on the sofa. Stacy hadn't thought that Jeff's residence would be even more imposing than his father's. The room was especially large. The servant poured them tea. With a smile on his face, Dylan said, "I've really troubled you, and it's almost the new year. I'm really sorry we have to deal with all of this." Jeff did not have any expression on his face. He simply listened. "Do you think she will go back with you?" Jeff asked lightly. Dylan was stunned. He didn't know what to say. Stacy's face was also very awkward. "Stacy and I will properly advise her. As long as she comes home, we'll make sure she's taken care of," Dylan said. Actually, it was impressive for her stepfather to do this. The average stepfather would have paid no attention to his stepchildren, but not only did Dylan care, he really cared. Maddie was upstairs lying on the sofa, unable to walk with injuries to her ankle. While she was lazily playing with her cell phone, the door was pushed open. The first person to walk in was a servant. The next was Jeff. Maddie smiled when she saw Jeff, but the grin froze on her face when she saw the two people behind him. Jeff looked at the changes on Maddie's face. His black eyes were deep, and he didn't say anything. "Maddie, why did you come here again? It's not good. Your mom and I came over to take you home." Dylan was very excited to see Maddie. Maddie held the phone tightly in her hand. Her knuckles had turned white. She didn't even look at Jeff's expression. Was he sending her back again? Maddie didn't say a word. She lowered her head and looked at the ground. "Maddie, why aren't you saying anything? Will you go back with your mother?" Stacy didn't know how to persuade her. Why was this child so stubborn? If Jeff came from a blood relation, then it would be fine. But that was not the case. Stacy walked up and looked at Maddie anxiously. Guilt flashed through Maddie's eyes, but she remained silent. "That's right, Maddie. Since your mother and I came all the way here to pick you up, why don't you come back with us?" Dylan also approached Maddie. However, as soon as he got close, Maddie reacted and stood up, trying to get away with a flustered expression on her face. However, she forgot about her ankle injury and fell to the ground. Jeff, who saw all of this, went forward and hugged Maddie, letting her fall onto his chest. Only then did Stacy and Dylan notice Maddie's injured ankle.
Maddie, what happened to your foot?
Dylan was more anxious than Stacy about her injury. It scared Maddie so much that she hugged Jeff and clung to him.
Don't worry about it. Get lost.
In times of danger, she still sought Jeff's protection, even if he was sending her back again. With a cold expression, Jeff looked at them with hostility and said, "Since you came all the way here, you should stay here for a couple of days. I insist." Maddie looked up at Jeff in disbelief. The line of his jaw was so hard and cold. She didn't know why Jeff wanted them to stay here. Wouldn't he want her to leave with them? What exactly was Jeff thinking?
How can we accept that offer? We're here to bring Maddie back,
Dylan said, trying to remain polite. However, Jeff acted as if he didn't hear anything. He instructed the servant,
"Go and arrange for a room."
"Please follow me," the servant said. Dylan and Stacy helplessly followed the servant. After they left, Maddie's nerves finally relaxed. Realizing that she had been holding Jeff, she immediately let go and sat back on the sofa. Maddie lowered her head and did not say a word. Jeff could only see her hair.
"What? You're not happy that I invited them to stay?"
Maddie raised her head, tears welling up in her eyes.
"They shouldn't stay here."
Jeff's eyes twitched slightly.
"Jeff, didn't you say that you wanted me to stay here? Why did you do this again? I told you I would live on campus, and you insisted that I live here. But then you told them to come pick me up. What do you mean by that?"
Maddie asked excitedly as her tears fell. Jeff wiped them away with the back of his hand.
"Did I say I wanted you to leave?"
Jeff asked coldly. Maddie was stunned.
"Didn't you want to send me away? Then why did they come? And they said they were going to take me back."
"Did I agree?" Jeff asked. Maddie was stunned. She hadn't heard Jeff say that he was going to send her back. She had just assumed.
"But there's no need to let them stay here."
Maddie still had a lot of thoughts about what was happening.
"It's my freedom to stay in my house."
After Jeff said that, he glanced at her, turned around, and left the room. Maddie looked after him in a daze. Jeff was right. This was his place. But no one should have to live with someone they don't like. 2 days. Maddie didn't want to stay under the same roof as them even for a second. Maddie looked at her feet. Luckily, she was wounded and couldn't walk around, so she didn't have to worry about running into them, right? Could she ask Jeff to stop them from coming to her room? But when she thought about Jeff's expression just now, she felt that he wouldn't help her. Maddie ate in her room during meals, but before going to bed, Stacy came to Maddie's room. When Maddie saw that Stacy was the only one who came in, her tense body immediately relaxed.
"Maddie, is this your room? No wonder you want to stay here. Just this room is bigger than our home,"
Stacy said with envy.
"What do you want?"
Maddie was afraid that Dylan would be close behind Stacy.
"Although this house is big, we don't dare to walk around. Your father is in his room, so I came to see you. Don't you want to see your mother?"
Stacy asked reproachfully. When Maddie heard the word father, her expression turned bad.
"My father is long dead. That man is not my father. How disgusting." Okay. Stepdad?"
Stacy thought that her daughter was just being rebellious, so she didn't say much and just let her be. However, what she didn't know was that Maddie was unwilling to even call Dylan her stepdad. She didn't even want to look at him. Thinking about Dylan made Maddie feel sick to her stomach.
Maddie, are you really not willing to come back? People will talk. Jeff is not our relative. It's scandalous, Stacy urged. If he's not family, then why did you tell me that in the past? And I won't live here forever. I just need to wait a bit longer and save money. Then I'll move out myself. I can work and support myself, so I won't be troubling Jeff for too long. Maddie? Stacy still wanted to advise her, but Maddie cut her off. Stop talking. I don't want to hear it. Stacy sighed. Fine, I won't say any more. Tell me, what happened to your foot? Twisted ankle? Yes, it's a sprain. Jeff said that I'll be fine after a couple of days of rest. You don't have to worry about me, Maddie sighed.
Stacy looked at her daughter, thinking that she was somehow both sensible and insane. After staying in the room for a while, she left. In Maddie's heart, she felt bad for treating her mother this way. But was there anything else she could do? Not at all. After a day, other than the servant and Jeff, no one else showed up in Maddie's room. But even so, it did not mean that she could rest peacefully. She knew that Dylan and Stacy would be there for another day. What did Jeff say? Can we take Maddie back tomorrow? Dylan asked Stacy anxiously while they were alone in the room. I don't know. Stacy sighed. Well, go on and ask. You can't possibly let Maddie stay here. This is someone else's house. It's not good to stay here forever, Dylan argued. Hearing Dylan's words, Stacy, who originally wanted Maddie to live here, was persuaded. She gave in. Fine, I'll go ask. When Stacy walked out of the room, she saw Jeff standing in the hall, buttoning the sleeves of his shirt. Jeff, are you going out? Stacy asked carefully. Yes. What's the matter? Jeff looked at her. I just want to ask, when we leave tomorrow, can we make Maddie come with us? Stacy stammered. Is that something I can decide? Maddie can make her own decisions. If she wants to return, she will do so. If she doesn't, she will stay here. There are a lot of rooms here anyways, so it doesn't matter to me. I won't be back tonight. Tell Maddie about my decision. All right, Stacy said. Jeff looked up and saw Dylan standing not far away. After sweeping a cold glance over him, he turned around and left. Dylan walked up to Stacy and asked, What does he mean by that? If Maddie is willing to go back, she will. I don't think that Maddie is willing to do anything about it, though. Stacy sighed. Dylan's expression changed, becoming evil. Maddie ate dinner and rested against the headboard, her cell phone in her hand. All she did these days was play games. At that moment, the door opened and someone walked in. Maddie looked up and saw Stacy and Dylan. Maddie nervously sat up and angrily said to Dylan, Who let you in? Get out! Maddie, how can you say that? Don't treat your stepdad that way. Stacy felt that Maddie had overreacted. It's fine if you're here, but why did you let him come to my room? Maddie hated Dylan. Maddie, don't be angry. Your mother and I came to persuade you to come back, because tomorrow we are leaving. Dylan wasn't angry. He was smiling. Stacy continued, Look at how nice your stepdad is to you. He's afraid that you'll be lonely. Don't act like a child. I said I won't go back. Maddie was enraged. Seeing that, Dylan pulled Stacy out of the room. What did you do that for? Stacy asked. Go to the supermarket and buy something that Maddie likes to eat. If you try to coax her, perhaps she might be willing to go back, Dylan said. And you'll stay here to look after her? Stacy asked. What do I need to protect her from? Since this place is so safe, nothing will happen to her. True. With that, Stacy left. Dylan returned to his room once again. After waiting a moment, he cracked the door open, and seeing that there were only servants there, he slipped into Maddie's room. Maddie was just wondering if they had left when she saw Dylan walking in. Maddie's whole body was filled with fear. "Where's my mother?" she asked with a shaking breath. "You made a fuss and didn't want to go back, so your mom went to buy things for you," Dylan said with a smile on his face. "Get out!" Maddie gave the order intensely. Dylan remained unmoved and even sat down on the edge of the bed with a smile. Maddie was so frightened that she retreated backwards. "Who let you sit on my bed? Get lost," she said. "Maddie, why are you so upset? I'm here to take you home." The smile on Dylan's face became weird and twisted. "I won't go home with you guys. Just give up," Maddie yelled. "Maddie, do you think I can't find you just because you're hiding here? I advise you to come back with me, honestly." It sounded like a threat, but he still had a strange smile on his face. "Look at you. I really feel sorry for you. I can buy you whatever you want. Why are you so disobedient?" Dylan said as he performed a fake frown. Tears welled from the corners of Maddie's eyes. Suddenly, a voice that sounded like it came from hell came from behind Dylan. Dylan was stunned. Before he could come back to his senses, he was yanked backward by the back of his head. "Ah!" Dylan fell to the ground. Jeff's foot directly stepped on his neck. Maddie was curled up in the bed, her eyes misty with tears. She was frightened. "Get under the blanket and cover your head." Jeff looked at her and ordered. Maddie didn't know what to do. At this moment, she looked at Jeff as if he was her lifesaver and did whatever he told her to do. She crawled into the blanket and covered her head. "Spare me, I didn't do anything," Dylan begged. He had not expected Jeff to come back. "Didn't you say that you were going out tonight?" Jeff didn't say anything and lightened the pressure on Dylan's neck. Just as Dylan was about to heave a sigh of relief, he felt a cold shiver down his spine. The corner of Jeff's mouth curled up into a cruel smile. He grabbed Dylan's neck and forcefully pulled him backwards. Dylan's eyes were wide open, but it was obvious that Dylan was dead. Jeff casually waved his hand, and a bodyguard walked in and took Dylan's body out. There was no trace of blood on the carpet. Jeff walked to the edge of the bed and sat down. Maddie trembled in fear, but she still had her head buried under the blanket, so she thought it was Dylan coming closer to her. Maddie's body kept shaking under the blanket. "He's gone," Jeff said. Maddie hesitated for a moment before she pulled the blanket aside, revealing her eyes. She looked around but didn't see Dylan. Where is he?" Maddie asked, trembling. "Let's go," Jeff said without answering her question. "Do I have to go back home?" Maddie asked again. Jeff didn't answer her, but he asked, "You've been unwilling to go back because of Dylan?" Maddie's expression changed immediately. She lowered her gaze and didn't say anything. "When I ask you a question, you have to answer it." Maddie glanced at Jeff timidly before she nodded. "He would come to my room while I was sleeping." Thinking about that scene, Jeff's face immediately turned dark. Letting him die so easily was letting him off too easily. He should have died in pain. "Does your mom know?" Jeff asked. If Stacy knew about this, he would have made her pay as well. Maddie shook her head. "I don't know." "Why didn't you tell your mother?" Jeff's expression turned ugly. Did she even know how to protect herself? How long had that man been bullying Maddie? "I was afraid my mother would be upset, so I didn't say anything. But I know how to protect myself." "Your protection was running away?" Jeff asked. Maddie pursed her lips and didn't speak. She had no other choice. "He will never appear in front of you again." Jeff looked at her frightened expression and suppressed his sinister tone. "Do you mean that I can stay here forever?" Maddie asked hopefully. Jeff looked at her clear eyes and said, "You don't need to go back. Just stay here."
Thank you, Jeff.
Maddie's face lit up in delight. Jeff's gaze shifted as he took out her injured ankle to examine it. Maddie looked at Jeff's expression and felt that it was a little scary. She said, "It's fine now. It doesn't hurt if I don't touch it."
"Did he touch it?" Jeff asked.
"Yes." Maddie nodded. Jeff stood up without a word and walked out with a gloomy face. Maddie was stunned. Was Jeff angry again? Even so, she was so grateful that Jeff had chased Dylan away. Otherwise, who knows what Dylan would have done? Of course, Maddie didn't know that Dylan had been killed by Jeff. She thought he had just left. Fortunately, Jeff said that she could live here from now on, so she didn't have to go back. Jeff went downstairs. Just as he walked down the stairs, he saw Stacy returning. She was carrying a big bag of snacks, which she wanted to give to Maddie. Jeff's expression was calm as he said, "Your husband went back home." Stacy was taken aback. He's gone?" "Yes." "And Maddie?" "From now on, I will watch Maddie until she graduates," Jeff said decidedly. He looked at Stacy with disgust, thinking that she wasn't able to protect her own daughter properly. If it wasn't for the fact that Jeff saw that Stacy truly cared for Maddie, he wouldn't even look at her directly. "Wouldn't that be too much trouble for you?" Stacy asked. "You were basically a member of the Holmes family. As for Maddie, she's my family. There's no trouble with her staying here," Jeff said carelessly. How could I still be a member of the Holmes family? Hearing you say that, I can only feel ashamed. I'm sorry." Stacy felt herself lose her composure and immediately recovered. "Since she insisted on staying here, I won't take her back. And since Dylan is gone, I won't stay here anymore. I'll give these snacks to Maddie and let her know." Stacy entered Maddie's room and put down the food on the coffee table. She sat down on the edge of the bed and caressed Maddie's small hand. She asked, "Are you sure you want to stay here?" "I'm sure." Maddie nodded. "Sometimes, I think, I've done something wrong when it comes to raising you. If so, I want to correct myself," Stacy whimpered. "No, you didn't do anything wrong. It's my problem." Even now, Maddie still did not say what Dylan did to her. "Mom, is Dylan really being nice to you?" "In the beginning, he was in a big rush and pushed me to get married. But in the end, he was kind. Since we've settled down, I guess I haven't thought much about it. And then I saw you grow up, and now I'm waiting for you to get married and have kids. And I don't have any regrets," Stacy said with a smile. "Mom, do you want to return to the Holmes family? If you want to come back, I can help you." Maddie thought that if she could only get her mother into a stable home, she wouldn't need to cling to Dylan. Stacy's expression immediately changed. "Please don't have such thoughts." "Why?" Maddie asked, puzzled. "I couldn't bear to see them again after what I did. Just stay here with Jeff and don't bother the Holmes family. Do you understand?" Seeing Stacy's serious expression, Maddie did not say anything else and nodded in agreement. But in her heart, she knew that she must not let her mother live with that disgusting man for the rest of her life. After Stacy left, Maddie felt a little bit sad, but she was also relieved that she could stay with Jeff and rest in peace. It was good for everyone, she thought. Maddie, who was still in a daze, heard someone walk into the room. She turned and looked at Jeff, who was standing beside the bed. Jeff sat on the edge of the bed and pulled out Maddie's foot. He then wiped a towel with ointment on Maddie's ankle. Maddie's nose twitched as she smelled the disinfectant. Maddie wanted to sneeze from the strong smell of the disinfectant, but she held it in. After all, Jeff was doing this out of kindness, so she couldn't show any signs of disrespect. Jeff didn't express anything on his face, but his eyes were dark.
Jeff, have you finished?
Maddie couldn't help but speak up after he started wiping yet again with a clean cloth. Jeff raised his eyes and looked at Maddie. He could see a few tears were already seeping out of her eyes. Jeff released his hand, and Maddie heaved a sigh of relief. However, Jeff still had to apply the ointment on her after using the disinfectant.
It hurts,
Maddie whimpered. She felt as if she had experienced a world of ice and then of fire. One moment it was itchy, the next it was painful.
Jeff, be gentler,
she begged in her soft, timid voice. Jeff felt his heart tighten. Okay, I will. He lightened his touch for a moment, but then returned to rubbing with more strength. Maddie flinched away. She didn't want to offend Jeff, but she couldn't stand the pain. Jeff sighed with impatience. Didn't you hear the doctors say that you need to use strength every time you rub out your ankle to get the blood flowing? Maddie naturally had heard the doctor say that, but this pain felt too much. Seeing Jeff's determined gaze, Maddie could only endure it. Maddie grit her teeth and took a deep breath. After he put Maddie's foot back under the blanket, Maddie said,
Jeff, I can apply the medicine myself in the future.
But you won't rub out your ankle, will you? Jeff challenged. Just as she was about to nod her head, Jeff's voice immediately sunk down. Is it of any use? Maddie stopped talking and looked at Jeff's expression timidly. Then Jeff turned around and left. Maddie pouted. She felt that Jeff's temper was really hard to guess and deal with. Just as dinner was about to begin, the cell phone beside Maddie rang. She took the phone and looked at the caller ID. She answered,
Mom? What's up?
I'm already home, but Dylan isn't back yet. He didn't even answer my phone call. Do you know where he is? Stacy asked. Maddie did not want to talk about Dylan, especially now. However, since Stacy was so nervous, she tried to comfort her mother.
Did he go somewhere else first? I wouldn't worry too much. He won't go far,
Maddie said indifferently. Well, I'll wait. Sometimes I really can't stand that guy. It's okay. You should rest properly. Don't get out of bed if you have nothing to do, okay? Her mom advised.
Got it.
Also, try not to cause trouble for Jeff.
I know.
Jeff said he would let you stay until you graduated. If you don't want to come back and he kicks you out, you can live on campus. If you don't want to live there, you can rent a room. I can even help you pay for it. Hearing Stacy's words, a smile appeared on Maddie's face.
All right.
After hanging up the phone, Maddie was in a bit of a daze. Perhaps the Holmes family didn't like her mother, but in her heart, her mother was the most important person in the world. That was why she chose to remain silent, even though she had suffered so much pain from Dylan. Maddie just wanted her mother to have a better life, full of happiness. But where did Dylan go? After dinner, Stacy called again and said that Dylan still hadn't come back. Maddie didn't care if Dylan returned home or not, but she was concerned about her mother's anxiety when she was alone at home. A servant came into her room and asked,
Miss, do you need anything else?
No need. Is Jeff home? She replied.
Yes, Mr. Holmes is here.
Then can you ask him to come here? I have something to talk to him about.
Yes, ma'am.
Not long after the servant left, Jeff arrived. His face was cold. He didn't like feeling as if he had been summoned. What is it? He asked briskly.
Jeff, you said that Dylan went back home alone, but my mom called to say that he hasn't come home yet.
Are you that worried? Jeff sneered.
Of course not. I'm worried about my mother.
Maddie didn't know what Jeff was so unhappy about. What are you worried about? If he's not at home, perhaps he was killed on the way, Jeff said casually. Maddie choked on Jeff's brutal words. Jeff went up and took Maddie's phone, turned around and left the room. Go to sleep. Maddie wanted to complain about Jeff taking her phone, but he was gone before she could form the words. In the morning, after Maddie finished her breakfast, her hand was about to reach for her phone when she remembered that it wasn't there. She leaned back in the bed in boredom. There wasn't even a television in the bedroom. Jeff walked in and saw that Maddie looked very bored. He handed her phone over expressionlessly. "Thank you," Maddie said as she held the phone in her hand. "Dylan is dead," Jeff suddenly said. Maddie was stunned. She raised her head to look at Jeff and asked in confusion, "What?" "He was killed on the way home. The body has been found," Jeff said. Maddie was in a daze for a long time, unable to react. He really died? "Jeff, tell me the truth. Was he really killed?" Maddie was momentarily unable to digest it. "Isn't it better that he's dead?" Jeff asked. Maddie took a shuddering breath. "But my mom. Does my mom know?" Jeff nodded. "I talked to her and told her to move in after things over there were settled." Jeff knew that Stacy would be upset, but he couldn't let that kind of man live a moment longer. "Move over here? But my mom, where would she stay?" Maddie asked. "I'll arrange it for her. You don't have to worry about it." Jeff's expression was calm. Is that too much trouble for you?" When Jeff heard that, he momentarily lost his patience. "You know what's troublesome? You should have stayed away from me from the beginning." Maddie shrunk back into the bed. Jeff turned around and left with a dark face. Maddie felt slightly guilty. However, thinking about how Dylan died, she felt like she was in a dream. She asked herself, is Dylan, who did such disgusting things to me, really dead? Then doesn't that mean I don't have to be afraid in the future? But what about my mother? Across town, still in her father's house, Lucia sat by the window of a room on the second floor. She rested her chin on the windowsill and breathed in the fresh air outside. She didn't go to work. She felt that she couldn't do anything anymore. Her gaze landed on the pink diamond on her ring finger. Her heart was sour and heavy, even causing her breathing to be somewhat stifled. How had she and Dalen become like this? The pink diamond was still dazzling. Looking at it made her heart feel even worse. The more Lucia looked, the more she couldn't take it anymore. She reached out to pull it off her finger, but no matter how hard she pulled, the ring didn't budge. What was going on? She wouldn't have to wear it for the rest of her life, would she? Dalen was so heartless to her. Why should she wear it? It felt like a mockery. Just as she was thinking of a way to rip the pink diamond ring off, the phone on her bedside table rang. Lucia stood up and went to answer it. "Who is it?" she asked.
"Can you please fix your phone so you know it's me?"
Cole's dissatisfied voice sounded. "I would need money to buy myself a new phone," Lucia complained.
"Continue being stingy."
Cole changed his tone. "Oh, right.
My parents were talking about you, asking when you're coming to visit at our house."
I'll go see them in the new year."
"Lucia, are you still at your dad's house? Dalen, didn't he come to find you?"
Cole didn't want to make Lucia sad. However, dragging things on like this wasn't an option either. It was very hard to bear. "Why would he be looking for me? Don't you remember he has Victoria now?" Lucia asked sarcastically, while suppressing the bitterness in her heart.
"How about this? Since you're alone now, why don't you come to my house for the new year?"
Cole offered. Lucia couldn't celebrate the new year alone. That was too heartbreaking. "No need. I just want to stay here." Lucia refused. Cole wanted to argue, but he also didn't want to agitate her more. After the call ended, Lucia looked at the diamond ring on her ring finger again and stood up to leave. Lucia wandered to the street where she had gone to sell the diamond ring months ago when she first ran away. She wanted to find the shop that cheated her, but she couldn't find it. She looked around and saw an old man who was cleaning people's shoes on the street. He looked a little familiar. Lucia leaned in and looked at the haggard old man. Are you and the owner of the pawn shop twins? You two look alike. The old man who was cleaning the shoes looked at her with wide, unbelieving eyes. It's you? Lucia found this strange. You know me? Of course. The fallen pawnbroker could never forget that priceless pink diamond. He looked at Lucia's finger. The diamond ring was still there. Lucia understood. You are the owner of the pawn shop? Why are you out cleaning shoes? Lucia asked, surprised. What else could I do? I offended your husband and I couldn't operate my shop any longer. If I didn't clean shoes, I wouldn't even be able to eat, said the depraved pawnbroker. Lucia wasn't too surprised as she heard the pawnbroker's tale. She squatted down and held out her ring. When I first came to you, you said this was worthless. You were scamming me. Now do you know how much it's worth? The fallen pawnbroker looked at her with a guilty conscience and stammered, You're not the only one I tricked. Lucia shook her head in disgust and said, You deserve the shine shoes. The pawnbroker looked down in shame. Lucia continued, Then do you feel that there's anything strange about my ring? Can you not take off the ring and give me a closer look? I know it's very valuable. Even if you were here, I wouldn't have that much money. The decadent pawn shop owner felt as if his heart had been pierced. The corner of Lucia's mouth twitched. She knew she couldn't take it off. I can't take off my ring. If you help me take it off, I'll give you $50,000, Lucia said, ignoring his attitude. The fallen pawn shop owner glared at her. Are you playing with me? What I'm saying is true. I really can't take it off. Lucia pulled and pulled at the ring, but it was impossible for her to take it off. Look, you try. Really? $50,000? What if I take it off for you and you go back on your word? The pawnbroker was suspicious, but now that he was broke, $50,000 was an astronomical figure. Lucia rolled her eyes. If I don't give it to you, would you still take it off? No. The fallen pawnbroker shook his head. Then take it off. I'll give you the money. The depraved pawn shop owner could only look at the ring. As he looked at it, his attention was distracted by the pink diamond. There was a lustful and greedy expression in his eyes. Lucia saw that something was amiss and was angered. What are you looking at? Do you think that I'm not good for the money? The depraved pawnbroker retracted his greedy eyes and said, I'm drawn to jewels. You can't blame me. With that, he began to look at the ring seriously. This ring of yours seems to have something stuck in it, he said. What is it? That's right. If you try to pull it off, it will tighten, like a finger trap. You'll have to use special tools to get it off, said the fallen pawnbroker. What tools? Do you have any here? Lucia asked desperately. I'm a shoe shine man. What kind of tools would I have? The tools are at my house. Then I'll go back with you to get the tools. Just get it off for me. The depraved pawnbroker wouldn't have paid any attention to her if it weren't for the $50,000 she was promising him. Since his home wasn't far from where they were, he stood up, packed up his stall, and took Lucia back with him. When they reached his home, the depraved pawnbroker found the tools, and Lucia gave him her hand. While he was working, he said, You're quite bold. Aren't you afraid that I'll harm you and steal the ring back? You can't harm me. If you do, the same people who took your business will take your life, Lucia said casually. The fallen pawnbroker was so scared that his hands trembled. He just wanted to scare her. What was he really doing? If I help you take the ring off, can you let me reopen the pawn shop? The man asked. No. Why? Who let you cheat so many people? Serves you right, Lucia said, looking down on him. The depraved pawnbroker really didn't want to help her get it off, but in the end, he gave in to a $50,000 reward. With the help of the small tools, the ring slowly slid off of Lucia's finger. After finally getting it off, Lucia's entire body went into a trance. It was as if a sense of loss had filled her chest. I was so used to it being there, she thought. It had basically become part of her finger. What a high-tech thing. If you put it back on, you won't be able to take it off yourself for the rest of your life. The pawnbroker turned the ring over in his hands, unwilling to give it to Lucia. Upon seeing this, Lucia immediately rushed over. He clenched his fist around the ring and said, "You can only look at things that don't belong to you. You can't take them." Lucia handed over the money, and the pawnbroker handed over the ring. Lucia did not want to be alone in her father's house that night. Her heart would only become more and more forlorn. She knew that she should go out and celebrate the new year. She could go to Cole's house, but wouldn't it be a pity for a married person to go to someone else's house for the New Year's celebration? After thinking it over, she decided to travel out of town for the new year. At the very least, she wouldn't feel so bad about being alone, right? After returning home, Lucia took out the ring and looked at it for a long time. She had known how precious this ring was, but she didn't expect Dalen to use such a method to prevent her from taking it off. However, at this moment was Dalen, who was with Victoria, still thinking about what he had done? He'd probably forgotten about the whole thing. Lucia put the ring in the drawer and closed it. Then she packed her luggage. She wondered where she would go, but ultimately decided that it didn't really matter. She hadn't been out on a trip in her whole life, so she was going out to see the world. Lucia went downstairs to the dining room to eat. When she was done eating, Lucia stood up and was about to leave the dining room when she said to the servant, "I want some milk. Why don't you go buy it for me later?" "All right, ma'am." Lucia nodded. She knew this servant was hired by and reported to Dalen. If the servant suspected anything amiss, Dalen would definitely know. Asking a servant to buy things was a very normal thing, so there was nothing to be suspicious about. After the servant had left, Lucia anxiously looked at her father's black and white photo. "Dad, if you were here, would you still be arguing with me?" Lucia laughed, her eyes burning with tears. "I'll be back after the new year. I'll come see you then." Lucia stood in front of her father's photo for almost half an hour before she went upstairs to bring down her luggage and leave the villa. Seated in the taxi, Lucia was reading the tour guide she had created. She even looked at the map. However, in her eyes, the map seemed to have no rules, and she could not understand it at all. It took her a long time to figure out what was going on. The taxi followed the route she had provided and dropped her off at the bus stop. Her first stop was to go to a tourist place with mountains and rivers. The photos online looked amazing. She wanted to book a hotel close to the scenery, where she could open the window to see the clear river. Lucia was looking forward to it. There were also quite a few people on the bus, and there were many different stops. Lucia sat by the window and thought that she should call Cole. As soon as he picked up, Cole asked, "What's wrong?" "Let me tell you something," Lucia said. "What is it? Good or bad?" Cole asked nervously. "Good news." Cole heaved a sigh of relief and asked excitedly, "You and Dalen, it's settled?" "What are you talking about?" Lucia looked at the scenery outside the window. She didn't want to think about Dalen, that heartless man, at this moment. "Then what's good?" "I'm out on a trip." "What? When are we going?" "I'm on my way now." Cole was so shocked that he almost fell from his bed. "Why are you out on a trip? You're alone?" "Yeah, I'm going on a trip to celebrate the new year." "Lucia, you—" Cole felt immediate anxiety. Lucia, however, did not care. "What? Isn't this good? I want to go out and see the world. And there are a lot of people traveling these days to celebrate the new year." Cole wanted to say other people who travel during the new year are with their whole family, and you are alone. Instead, he asked, "Why didn't you tell me?" "Why should I tell you?" Lucia challenged.
The two of us could have gone together.
Forget it. I want some space to clear my head. Lucia had waited to tell Cole until she was on the bus because she assumed he would want to come. She knew how Cole would react badly, but she had already decided. Lucia understood that Cole did not want her to feel sad alone. However, Lucia felt that this was what she needed to do. After driving for a while, the bus slowly ground to a halt, as if it had been stuck in the mud. "Why did you stop?" Lucia asked. The passengers chattered away. The driver replied, "I'll go down and take a look." Then he went down. After a while, he got back on and said, "The bus is broken. Everyone off." "What? Then what should we do?" a passenger asked. "Yeah, where are we going to get a ride in the middle of nowhere?" "I'll call another bus to take you." As the driver said this, he took out his cell phone and made a call. Lucia sat in her seat, looking gloomily around the noisy interior of the bus. How unlucky was she? The first time she goes on a trip, she breaks down halfway. If she had known, she would have gone on the train. After the driver finished his call, he said, "The bus won't be able to get here. You guys will have to wait until my bus is repaired before we continue our journey." "When will the bus be ready?" a passenger asked. "I don't know." The driver sighed. "This is really bad luck. If your bus has any problems, then you shouldn't have driven it. What do you mean by leaving us on the road?" The passengers were not happy. The driver was also troubled. "How was I to know? I'm trapped here too. It's no use arguing with me." "You are shirking your responsibilities." "Exactly. How come there's no bus to take us the rest of the way? It's obvious because he wants to get rid of us as he pleases." Listening to the noise of the passengers, the driver argued, "The buses are all busy. If you don't want to wait, there's a hotel not too far away. You can stay here for the night. Of course, there will be another bus passing by tomorrow." Lucia couldn't bear to stay in the noisy bus any longer, so without saying anything, she got out of the bus. When she stepped outside, she looked at the fields on both sides of the road and felt a little dazed. Lucia gritted her teeth. Lucia dragged her suitcase and walked forward alone. After walking for half an hour without seeing the hotel, Lucia wished she could go back and scold the bus driver thoroughly. What did he mean, not far away? She'd been walking for forever. It took Lucia almost an hour of walking before she found a hotel by the roadside. The Highway Hotel. Lucia stood outside the door and looked at the relatively clean yard, thinking about all the horror movies she had seen. She was nervous, but she also really couldn't walk anymore. Furthermore, it was too cold for her to sleep outside. So Lucia shook off her nerves and forced herself to enter the Highway Hotel. When she opened the door, the sound of wind chimes rang out. It actually gave her a feeling of calmness. The man at the front desk was wearing glasses and looked very friendly. "Hello, are you looking for a room?" "Yeah, please," Lucia replied. "What kind of amenities are you looking for? We have different sizes of beds and some rooms have bathtubs as well as showers," the front desk man asked. "Well, sorry, I don't have much money. I'll take whatever you have that I can afford," Lucia said. Lucia had wanted to say that she wanted the best room, but after thinking about it, she figured it was best not to reveal her wealth, lest they try to rob her later. Lucia was witty enough by herself. "All right." The man at the reception desk started typing on his computer to get a room for her. After entering the room, she thought it looked pretty clean, but there was no heater, no showers. She didn't know what era the TV was from, but all that displayed was static. After circling the room, Lucia put the suitcase aside and thought, "It's fine. I'll stay the night and leave tomorrow." At this moment, her phone rang. Lucia took it out and answered. "Hello?"
"Where are you?"
Dalen's anger was almost tangible through the phone. Lucia was stunned. She hadn't expected it to be Dalen. Actually, there was no need to be surprised.
If she could have seen the caller ID on the screen, she would never have answered his call. "I'm traveling," Lucia answered. "Who let you travel alone?" Dalen almost growled. "Why can't I travel? I was bored at home. Don't worry, it's not like I'm going to run away forever. I'll be back after I've seen enough." "When will that be?" Dalen asked. "Sometime after the new year." "Come back now." Lucia was annoyed when she heard that overbearing voice. "Why should I come back now? Don't I have the freedom to make my own choices? It's better for you to mind your own business and not waste your time on me." With that, Lucia hung up the phone and turned it off. It was really strange. Was he unsatisfied with Victoria? Dalen dialed Lucia's number again, but her phone was already turned off. He was so angry that he slammed his fist on the car door. The driver sitting in the front did not dare to breathe. The only person that could make Dalen so angry was Lucia. The car stopped at Lucia's father's house. Dalen got out of the car with a cold expression. He stared down the shivering servant and said with a ruthless gaze, "You didn't know that she went out? What did you think you were supposed to be doing here?" "I'm sorry, sir. Lucia said she wanted milk and told me to go buy some, so I went. When I returned, she was gone." Dalen suppressed the anger in his heart. Lucia was obviously trying to leave secretly. Dalen turned around and went to Lucia's room on the second floor. He opened the door. The interior was neat and tidy. The bed was still broken. The air in the room seemed to still carry the scent of Lucia's body. And yet, it was so cold. Her suitcase was gone, and her clothes were gone. Dalen opened a drawer and his eyes narrowed. The pink diamond ring was lying there quietly. Dalen lifted it up. The expression on his face was so ugly that it could no longer be described. She actually took it off again. What was she thinking? Did she actually want to leave him? Dalen went down the stairs and walked up to Spencer. "Find her." Just these two words were so full of pain and malice. Once he found her, he would lock her in the mansion and never think of letting her out again. Lucia suffered so much during her night in the hotel. Once the sun went down, it became extremely cold. She had huddled in her bed for a long time, but her feet were still cold. Lucia could not bear it any longer. She lifted the blanket and got off the bed, determined to ask the owner for a hot water bottle. How else could she sleep tonight? However, just as she was about to turn the corner and walk to the front desk, she saw someone walk in. Upon seeing that person, Lucia immediately crouched down and hid. Why was Spencer here? Was Dalen nearby? If Spencer was here, Dalen wouldn't be far. Without hesitation, Lucia turned around and ran back to her room. Why did it have to be like this? Why couldn't Dalen just let her breathe? Lucia went back to her room, picked up her things, and threw them out the window. Then she jumped out of the window and ran away. Fortunately, she was on the first floor. Otherwise, she definitely wouldn't be able to escape. Spencer was talking to the owner at the front desk. "Excuse me, is this person staying here?" Spencer showed the photo in his hand to the owner. The front desk man nodded. "Yes, she came in earlier today." Spencer's expression relaxed. "Is she still in the room?" "Yes, she hasn't been outside since the room was open." "Take me there," Spencer demanded. When he reached the door, Spencer knocked. No one answered. Maybe she was asleep. Therefore, Spencer knocked on the door with a little more strength and continued to knock patiently. However, there was still no response. Spencer frowned, then raised his leg and kicked the door open. There was no one inside, and the window was open. She had run away. Lucia ran for as long as her legs would carry her. She dragged her suitcase down the mountain road and miraculously saw a bus coming, so she rushed forward to intercept it. As soon as the bus stopped, she climbed in. When she saw the driver, she was a little stunned. "Hey, I told you to be patient.
And now you've ended up sharing a bus with us after all." One of the passengers laughed at her. Lucia did not expect that all the same people would be on this bus, but she was grateful that she had found a way to get as far away from Dalen as possible. Dalen stood on the mountain road, his figure cutting through the night. As he watched a bus pass by on the road, his eyes were turned to the dark beyond, searching. "Mr. Patrick, it looks like Lucia has run away." Spencer ran out and said, "There is a bus up ahead. She must be on it." Dalen turned around and got into the car. Dalen's car easily chased down the bus, and he came on to look for Lucia. However, all of them were unfamiliar faces. Lucia was nowhere to be seen. The people in the bus were frightened by the strangely intense man and didn't dare to breathe. Dalen's face was terrifyingly dark as he turned around and got out of the bus. Only then did the bus dare to leave. Dalen looked into the dark night. If it wasn't for the light from the headlights on the car, everything would have been swallowed up by darkness. He was not only angry, but also worried. Lucia must have fled because of him. Since she was on foot and didn't get into the bus, she must be somewhere nearby. Other than this road hotel, there were no other places to sleep nearby. Little did Dalen know, Lucia had gotten on the bus, but at the last second she felt she couldn't stay. With Dalen's intellect, he would definitely stop the bus and check for her. So she turned and got out of the bus. Then she went up the hill again. For someone who liked watching horror movies, she was deathly afraid of the dark, especially in this kind of countryside. Lucia had no problem climbing back in through the window into the highway hotel. She didn't open the door to her room, nor did she disturb the people in the hotel. Even though it was not warm, at least it was better than being outside, right? Outside, she would freeze to death. Dalen kept trying to call Lucia, but she wasn't answering. He returned to the highway hotel, and when the front desk man saw this extraordinarily imposing man standing there with a menacing attitude, he didn't dare to say anything. At that moment, the phone in Dalen's hand rang. Dalen picked it up. When he saw the caller ID, his face changed and he answered hurriedly. His voice turned hoarse. "Where are you?"
"Dalen, do you have to hunt me like this?"
Lucia asked. Dalen suppressed his raging emotions and told her patiently, "Don't you know it's not safe to go out alone?" Hearing Dalen's question, Lucia's eyes became misty. She whispered,
"Do you really care about my safety?"
Dalen felt his chest tighten and his breathing became heavy. He then replied, "I care." At this time, he didn't care about the child and betrayal. He was only concerned about Lucia's safety. And Lucia's answer was,
"I don't believe you."
Dalen's expression was tense as he tried his best to calm her down. "Where do you want to travel? I'll go with you. I'm in the hotel right now. Where are you?"
"Dalen, do you think I'm stupid? If you find me, you won't let me get away with this without consequences."
Dalen cursed in his heart. She did know him very well. That was exactly what he was going to do. Lucia continued,
"Dalen, you don't have to look for me, and you can't find me either. I was on the bus you stopped, but I was hiding under the chair, and there was a passenger blocking it for me."
Dalen's expression changed.
"You can't chase me anymore. By the time you catch up, I'll have already changed my route. Dalen, can't you just leave me alone? The more you chase me like this, the more I want to avoid you. I already promised that I will come back after the new year."
After saying that, Lucia hung up. Dalen called again, but it went straight to voicemail. Lucia continued to curl up in her bed. She would not go back with Dalen. How could she continue watching Victoria and him flirting? Of course Dalen wouldn't listen to what Lucia said. Absolutely not. Back in the city, Cole had just got out of bed and was preparing to go grocery shopping with his mother. He had no clue where Lucia was now. He couldn't get through to her phone, and he'd been worrying about her all night. After all, it was Lucia's first trip. What happened? And why didn't she turn on her cell phone? Cole's mind was in a whirl. Just as he finished washing up, he heard the doorbell ring. Cole walked out of the room. "Mom, you're early." Before he could finish his sentence, Cole was immediately stunned when he saw the person who walked in. He stood motionlessly in front of the door. His parents were there, and so was Dalen. Cole's mother, who didn't seem to know what was going on, asked Dalen, "May I ask who you are looking for?" Dalen ignored her and walked into Cole's apartment. He looked around the room with his sharp black eyes. They lingered on Cole's parents. After Cole recovered his wits from the shock, he immediately went up to his parents and pushed them toward the door. "Mom, Dad, aren't you guys going to buy groceries? Hurry up and go." Cole's parents looked confused. "But It's nothing," Cole assured them, trying to get them to just leave as quickly as possible. "You know him?" his mom asked. Yes. "Then please entertain your guests. We'll be back soon." Cole's parents were honest people, so how could they know about the dangers that Dalen posed? Cole finally got rid of his parents with much difficulty and finally closed the door behind them. When he turned around, he saw a tall figure standing by the window and carefully called out, "Mr. Patrick?" When Dalen turned around, Cole's knees almost gave out. "You and Lucia have such a good relationship. Are you willing to sacrifice your life for her?" Dalen asked hesitantly. "If Lucia is in trouble, I will," Cole said resolutely. "What about the lives of your parents?" Cole hesitated. What was going on? Cole felt a chill run down his spine. "I admit it. That medicine really has nothing to do with me. I didn't get the medicine for Lucia. I don't know what happened." After Cole finished speaking, he silently felt ashamed, but he had to protect his parents. Dalen's face turned vicious. "What did you say? What medicine?" Cole cursed inwardly. Was this not the reason that Dalen came here? "My patience is limited. Speak clearly." Dalen took 2 steps forward. His whole body seemed to exude darkness and terror. I said that I didn't give Lucia the medicine to remove the child," Cole said. "Nothing else?" Dalen looked at him maliciously. No more," Cole said. His heart was filled with fear. He debated whether to say it or not. He was really in a difficult position. "In other words, your parents' lives are worthless to you, right?" Dalen threatened. Cole couldn't take it at all. "It's just that Lucia told me that if I tell you, she'll never speak to me again." Cole stuttered, but Dalen's violent gaze shocked him so much that he blurted out, "That medicine was given to her by your mom." As Cole finished his sentence, he wondered if it would cause any serious consequences. Dalen was stunned. His whole body was frozen as he looked at Cole with his black eyes. Spencer, who was nearby, was also shocked, because it was so unexpected. Cole took a deep breath. "Actually, this matter is somewhat complicated. It was because your mother didn't like Lucia, and she didn't want her to give birth to your child. After feeding her bad medicine for a week, she found out Lucia was already pregnant. In other words, after taking a week of medicine, the child would have been deformed. So your mom forced Lucia to take the child off her hands to cover up the truth." "Why didn't Lucia tell me?" Dalen's face was as cold as ice, and his voice was hoarse. "Because Lucia said she didn't want you to hate your mother. She fears that one day you will be like her, regretting your loss. Mr. Patrick, Lucia cares a lot about her marriage with you. If she were a selfish person, she would have told you the truth." Dalen left Cole's house without a word. As he walked out of the door, he tripped over the threshold. "Mr. Patrick!" Spencer was shocked, but Dalen walked out without saying anything. Back at the mansion, Dalen stood in the hall for a long time. John walked forward cautiously.
Mr. Patrick, did any of the servants leave during Lucia's pregnancy? Dalen's expression was masked by shadow. Yes, one was fired by you, and the other was a maid, who said that she had matters to take care of at home, Edward replied. After walking a few steps away, John thought of something and said, Lucia has also asked if there were any servants who left. When John looked over, he closed his mouth. He felt that he had talked too much. After all, Lucia had been expelled from the mansion. She asked, Dalen said. John saw that Dalen's expression didn't change, so he said, She was just asking if any of the servants in the mansion resigned, so I told her the maid resigned. Anything else? John thought for a moment and said, That's all. No more. Dalen stood there motionlessly, and no one else dared to move either. After a long while, Dalen opened his mouth. Go bring that woman here. Yes, sir. Spencer turned around and left. Dalen didn't go anywhere. He just sat on the sofa and waited until the maid was brought back. When the maid saw the person sitting on the sofa, she was so frightened that her face turned pale and she almost couldn't stand up. If I ask you a question, just tell me the truth. Do you understand? Dalen looked at her lazily. However, the atmosphere was especially frightening. Yes? You gave Lucia the pill? The madam told me to do it. She said no one would know. The madam paid me after administering the medicine, and I left. Mr. Patrick, it's not my fault. It's not my fault. The maid burst into tears. Money? So you like money? The only thing I'm afraid of is that you have all this money, but now you don't have any time left to spend it. Dalen waved his hand as if he was acknowledging a piece of trash. Take her away. The maid was so scared that she forgot to cry. Mr. Patrick, spare me. The madam told me to do it. It's not me. No matter how much she begged, she was still dragged out. Dalen was sitting on the sofa and looked so upset that no one dared to approach him. So Lucia was investigating who drugged her to verify the truth of the matter. She had even asked the doctor about different drugs and their side effects. He had thought that Lucia didn't want their child. He couldn't think of a reason why Lucia would take the child away if it wasn't for Axel. When he asked her that question, she had chosen to remain silent. Dalen was angry at her silence. Apparently, Lucia would rather be hated by him, ruthlessly treated by him, than to say anything. That was the truth. Dalen's black eyes turned red as he tried to suppress the pain that was tearing his chest apart. John was frightened when he saw Dalen acting so distraught. What the maid said just now was even more unbelievable to him. So it wasn't Lucia who took the child away, but Dalen's mother? And yet, Lucia was the one who had to bear it and not speak. This was too pitiful. At this moment, the phone in the hall rang, causing his heart to jump. Edward hesitated for a moment before walking over to pick up the phone. This is the Patrick family residence. Who is it? After a moment of silence, Edward looked at Dalen and replied, Yes, of course. It was Linda. This was not a good time, especially after the truth was revealed. However, he still had to tell Dalen about the phone call. Therefore, Edward walked towards Dalen. Mr. Patrick, he began. If you have something to say, just say it. No need to hesitate. Dalen's face turned cold. Yes, your mother has called to invite you over for dinner for Christmas, Edward said in almost a whisper. Dalen's black eyes were so deep that one could not see the bottom. Finally, he said, Tell her that I don't have time. With that, he stood up and left the mansion. Edward and everyone present naturally knew what that meant. Despite discovering that his mother had betrayed him, Dalen was overjoyed. When the pressure in the hall disappeared, John excitedly asked Edward, Edward, now that the misunderstanding is resolved, does that mean that the young mistress can come back?
Edward glanced at John but didn't say anything. John was puzzled.
What do you mean? Couldn't she come back? After seeing Mr. Patrick's expression, it seems like he will not blame the young madam anymore.
I'm afraid that the young mistress will not be willing to come back, Edward said in an insightful manner. John thought for a moment. That seemed to make sense.
Mr. Patrick was really going too far. Needless to say, you should know how sad the young mistress has been the past few weeks,
John said in a low voice. Then his expression turned to one of relief.
But I think that since Mr. Patrick is so powerful, she will eventually come back.
Edward sighed. Yes, she will eventually come back. Lucia was still in the hotel, feeling very proud of herself. She had slipped away right under Dalen's nose. She wanted to laugh when she thought about how shocked the receptionist had looked when she came out of the room. At that time, Lucia had been too tired, and she didn't want to explain anymore. Anyway, she didn't steal anything. Presumably, the man at the front desk knew that she was the one Dalen was looking for. After all, he had made a lot of commotion last night. Lucia's face slightly changed when she thought of Dalen. Her heart felt heavy. Why would he not let her travel? He seemed worried about her, but she just didn't believe it. Dalen cared about Victoria now. Perhaps in the new year, the divorce agreement will finally happen. Why did Lucia want to travel alone? Perhaps she also had the thought of running away. Although she knew that she would have to go back sooner or later, she didn't want to think about that now. Before going out, she made up her mind to not think about Dalen. She knew that if he took her back to the mansion, she wouldn't be able to escape again. It would be better to have this time of freedom. When Axel returned home, his expression and mood didn't look too good. He didn't even notice the people walking past him. Catherine frowned and pulled Axel over.
Didn't you see me? What's wrong? Where's your dad?
Axel came back to reality and saw that it was his mother. He relaxed his expression and said, Dad has a social meetup, so he won't be back for dinner tonight.
What's wrong with you? Nothing happened, right?
Catherine asked. I'm fine.
You don't look fine. You still want to hide this from me? Your father won't tell me anything, and you won't tell me anything. Maybe if you tell me, I can help you?
Axel looked a little down and worried. Lucia went on a vacation. I'm very worried. I'm wondering if I should go look for her.
Lucia went on a trip? With whom?
Catherine guessed as she looked at Axel's worried expression.
Is she alone?
Axel was silent for a moment, then said, If one day Lucia and I are together, I hope you can accept her.
You like her that much?
Catherine was shocked. Axel walked towards the study without saying anything. However, his expression explained everything. Catherine did not have to worry about Axel's emotions. Ever since he was young, Axel had been intensely private. The only thing she could think of was why Lucia would be traveling alone. Did Dalen let her go? Was this a trip, or was it something else? Catherine excitedly went to Victoria's room. Victoria was planting flowers on the balcony. The windows on the balcony were closed and heated. Otherwise, no matter how beautiful the flowers and plants were, they would have been frozen to death in winter.
Victoria!
Catherine walked into the room with a large smile on her face. Victoria put down the scissors and asked,
Catherine, what's making you so happy?
I have good news.
What is it? Lucia ran away from home.
What? Ran away from home? Victoria thought of something and said,
Isn't she just staying at her dad's old house? That isn't necessarily running away.
Not this time, Catherine said.
What do you mean? Victoria asked.
Your brother said Lucia went on a solo trip. No one knows when she'll be back. It seems that she is acknowledging that she's been beaten, Catherine said happily. Victoria was also happy with Lucia's actions, but after thinking about it, she asked, "What about Dalen? What did he think? Does he care?" "I'm sure he doesn't. Otherwise, Lucia wouldn't be traveling alone." "What do you think?" Catherine asked. "That may not be the case. Lucia has always been cunning. If she really wanted to travel without Dalen, it would not be impossible. When Dalen finds out, he'll definitely go find Lucia," Victoria said with a frown. "Don't worry, I will help you find out everything that's happening." Catherine's plan was to first go talk to Linda, but when she arrived, Linda was not in a good mood either. It was because Edward had called back to say that Dalen wouldn't come over for Christmas dinner and would be busy during the holidays. "Linda, I came to see you." Catherine giggled as she entered the room. She hadn't noticed Linda's bad mood because Linda had a fake smile on her face. The members of Robert's family always came with a purpose, and she had to be prepared. Of course, she knew what this was about. "Sit down." Linda gestured to the chair beside her. Catherine sat down. "It's been a few days since I've come to see you. Your complexion is just getting better and better." Catherine really didn't know how to speak when she was trying to be sneaky. However, Linda kept a straight face. Catherine was still smart. Otherwise, she would not have made it this far in their family. "Thank you for thinking of me," Linda said with a smile. Catherine continued, "However, I came here today to tell you something that I'm sure will put you in a better mood." "What is it?" Linda asked. "Lucia ran away from home." Linda stopped drinking her tea. "What did you say?" "It's true. She was angry and ran away from home." Linda's expression changed. "And Dalen knows about it, right?" Linda asked. "How could he not know? You and I have never liked Lucia, but now that she has left, it's even better for our plan. It would be best if she never came back," Catherine said happily. Linda did not like Lucia, but it was still very uncomfortable for her to speak against the girl she had tricked so badly. Linda's expression changed. Catherine thought that it was because of Lucia and not because of what she had said, so she continued. "Linda, after Dalen found out about this, if he didn't immediately go look for her, then it would mean that he has already given up on Lucia. Lucia really brought this upon herself. Who would dare to put on airs in front of Dalen? She is truly a selfish person who has taken advantage of our family. It is all thanks to the fact that Dalen doted on her in the past." "Enough," Linda interrupted her in an impatient manner. Catherine stuttered to a stop. "You can leave. I'm a bit tired." Linda acted as if she didn't see the stiffness on Catherine's face and directly ordered her to leave. "All right then, Linda. You rest first. I'll come see you soon." Catherine didn't dare to say anything else. She stood up and left with a smile on her face. After Catherine left, Linda couldn't fake a smile anymore. She forcefully placed the cup on the coffee table. Seeing that, her maid said, "Linda, what's wrong with you? Be careful of the pain in your hands." Linda huffed. "What's wrong? Didn't you hear what Catherine said? What Edward said on the phone? He said that Dalen doesn't have time to come over for dinner on Christmas. I think it's not that he doesn't have time. It's that he's spending all his time on Lucia." Linda was outraged. "Miss, maybe your son really is busy. After all, he is in charge of such a huge business." "You don't need to comfort me. I can even see through this. He still can't let go of Lucia, no matter how much Lucia hurt him. Couldn't he just leave it alone when he heard that Lucia was traveling alone?" The maid was speechless. She was indeed not sure about Dalen's actions. He always came to eat with Linda during holidays, but not this year. However, if Dalen didn't want to come, then there was nothing they could do. At Robert's house, Axel kept calling Lucia from the study room, but her phone was always off. Why did she shut down her phone? Did she not want to be disturbed by anyone? Suddenly, there was a knocking on the door of the study room. The person that entered was Robert. "Not eating anymore?" he asked. Axel just realized that it was time to eat. Robert looked at the phone in Axel's hand and asked, "Who are you calling?" Perhaps it was because he already knew what was going on. He added, "Did you get through?" "Nope." Axel hung his head. "Lucia is not smart, but she has a bad temper. I wonder if that's a good thing for Dalen." Robert's words were laced with a mocking tone. Axel sighed deeply. "Lucia, it's a really sad situation." "Isn't it just that their child is gone? What's there to be sad about? Are they really going to get a divorce over that?" Robert scoffed. "They didn't get divorced," Axel corrected. "Anyway, whether they get divorced or not, you're not allowed to get involved. Victoria can marry Dalen, but Lucia can't be with you," Robert said. Then, without caring about Axel's response, he stood up and left. Axel's response changed and became calm. It was normal for Lucia's phone to be off. Even if she turned it on now, there might be no signal where she was traveling. Axel didn't even know where she had gone. Didn't she say there were tourist attractions nearby with mountains and rivers that she wanted to visit? Out in the countryside, Lucia was tired out from walking around and stopped for a break at what looked like a tourist market. There were still people setting up stalls along the road, and Lucia crouched beside a stall and sat on a rock. The booth beside her was owned by an old lady in her 60s. She wore an old-fashioned woven hat, and her face was full of wrinkles. However, there was a kind look in her eyes. She was selling snacks and small cakes. As the fragrance drifted over, Lucia was about to stand up and buy one, when suddenly someone handed a cake to her. "Hungry? Eat one," the old lady said. Lucia was stunned. She said, "It's all right. I won't take your money." Besides, this old woman seemed quite poor already. "Ah? Why?" the old lady said. "Take it." The old woman pressed the cake into Lucia's hand. It was still warm, and the heat spread on her palm, warming her heart. The old lady must have thought that Lucia had no money, which was why she acted this way. Lucia wanted to say that she did, in fact, have money. However, looking at the woman's loving eyes, she didn't say anything and just ate the cake. It was really delicious. It tasted even better than it smelled. "I've been cooking here for decades, and no one has ever had a complaint." The old woman smiled. "Thank you. It's really delicious." Lucia's mouth bulged with food. She felt mixed emotions in her heart. She didn't come out here to be spoon-fed. She came out here to beg for money. Too pitiful. Lucia had once again become a beggar. She quickly ate the cake, and the baker said, "Do you want more?" "I'm not eating anymore. I'm full." Lucia shook her head. "Seeing how thin you are, I can tell you don't eat much." Lucia wanted to say, "Don't judge me by how thin I am. Trust me, I can eat." However, she was afraid that if she said she wanted to eat more, the old lady would continue to refuse to accept her money. "Are you a foreigner? Did you come here for a trip?" "Yeah, I'm traveling." "And your money was stolen?" the old lady asked again. Lucia didn't answer. "The scenery here is beautiful, but there are many thieves here. I've seen a lot of people who have been robbed," the woman warned. Lucia looked at the old lady, feeling flustered. "A lot?" "Many. You have to be more careful." "I will. Thank you." As the two of them chatted, it started to snow. "It's snowing?" Lucia was delighted, as if she had discovered something new. Reaching out, she let the snow fall on her hand and then slowly melt away. After seeing this, the old lady began to pack her things. "It's snowing. I'm going back." Lucia immediately went to help her clean up, but the old woman stopped her.
Thank you, dear, but there's no need. I can handle it myself. It's all right. You just gave me a cake for free. Just let me help clean up. The old lady smiled and didn't say anything. She just let Lucia help. When everything was packed, the old lady pushed the cart and said, "Well, I'm going." "All right, be safe. The road will be slippery when the snow starts to stick," Lucia warned. "Where do you live?" the woman asked. "Is there a hotel here?" "There are only lodgings and no hotels." Lucia ended up staying in the old lady's house because the woman's family often hosted tourists, so there was a special room. Although the furnishings were quite ordinary, they could still be considered complete, and there was enough heat to keep Lucia warm. The old woman was the only one who lived in the house. Her children had all grown up and moved away and rarely came back to visit. Lucia asked the old lady why she didn't go and live with her children. The old lady said she didn't want to burden the young people. This was truly a kind-hearted old woman. Lucia stayed there. Also, she felt very satisfied with her life here. Lucia didn't want to turn on her phone, so she couldn't play games and quickly became bored. But the old lady had a landline, and Lucia stared blankly at the phone, wondering if she should give Cole a call, but she decided against it. She didn't want Cole to worry about her during the holidays. Lucia went to the kitchen to help. "What's for lunch?" she asked. "I'll make you whatever you like." The old lady smiled. Lucia looked at the smile and asked, "You seem to be very happy. Do you feel the same way about every tourist who comes to stay?" "Yeah, I've been living here by myself for a long time, so it is more lively with visitors here." Lucia felt a little sour in her heart when she heard this, thinking of how she and her father had quarreled. The old woman continued, "How many days do you want to stay? It's almost Christmas and the New Year. Shouldn't you go back and celebrate with your family?" the old lady said. "My parents are dead. I have no family left." The old lady stopped cooking and looked at Lucia with pity. "So I'm planning to stay here for the New Year. Is that okay with you?" "Of course. You can stay as long as you want." Dalen searched everywhere for Lucia. However, no matter how hard he searched, he couldn't find her. Dalen knew that Lucia wasn't in a big city. If she was, she would be easier to track. They had searched all around the hotel, but no trace of Lucia could be found. If Lucia was deliberately hiding, it would be even more difficult to find her. However, Dalen didn't give up and continued to search. The closer it got to the end of the year, the more Dalen panicked. He did not want Lucia to celebrate the New Year alone. He wouldn't allow it, and he couldn't bear it. Dalen walked into the bedroom he and Lucia used to share. The wolfhound pendant with the crystal still hung on the bedside lamp. Every night he stroked it countless times. He missed the way she looked by his side, the way she bit him. He thought of all her loveliness. Why did he ever doubt her intentions? Dalen had to admit that it was because he was too jealous and judgmental. Dalen didn't know that he could be so irritable. He stood at the window and looked out at the roses he planted for Lucia, then turned around and left. When he walked up to the roses, he noticed that a few were wilting. Dalen's expression immediately turned gloomy.
"Someone come here!"
he yelled. Spencer immediately walked forward.
"Mr. Patrick."
"No withered roses are to be left in this bed."
"Yes, sir."
Spencer immediately ordered people to change it. The withering seemed to imply something, so it could not be tolerated, because he wouldn't allow it. After the roses were dealt with, Dalen left and didn't return to the mansion. He only took the wolfhound pendant with him. When Linda came to the mansion hours later, it was ice cold inside. It was as if the mansion had been abandoned and no longer had any warmth. "Where's Dalen?" Linda asked Edward. "Mr. Patrick is out," Edward replied. "Isn't he coming back?" Linda's expression was worried and impatient. "Mr. Patrick has been very busy lately and doesn't have time to come back."
Edward said.
I heard that Lucia ran away from home. Dalen must have gone to look for her, right?
Linda pretended to be calm as she asked.
We servants are not allowed to speak about Mr. Patrick's affairs,
Edward replied.
Linda knew Edward's loyalty, but she couldn't tell if he was lying or not. What happened in the mansion recently? Linda asked.
Nothing happened, Edward said.
No? How come I heard that Lucia ran away from home? Linda asked.
It's like this. The young madam does not live in the mansion, but she did not run away from home. She is staying in her father's house, Edward said. Linda's expression worsened. Of course, Edward wouldn't tell her what she wanted to know.